And that was 3 people. It's amazing. No, I'm kidding. Well, welcome to our Friday night Torah study. If you're new or just joining us, we do this every Friday night with the exception of feasts. The time may change, but we do this every Friday night starting at 6:30. We actually get together and have a meal together, have our Shabbat blessings. We read through that liturgy at 6:30, and then at 7:30, we start with the Torah study. So we're so excited to be here. We look forward to this, bringing in Shabbat together. So Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Awesome. Good to have all of you here. So what we're going to do is we're going to read through the Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is Bo, which means go. What a rhyme. Bo, go. Okay. Boo, who? No. Okay. That's Exodus 10:1 through Exodus 13:16. There are 7 readings. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up our readers. We're going to say a blessing over them after they read their portion. At the end of everyone reading, we'll do a blessing over everyone. And then we'll have some announcements. After the announcements, Rabbi will come out and lead us in the Q&A, the questions and answers, or the Midrash. So what we try to do, and what we should all be looking to do as we go through the Torah portion, is finding out what we can apply from the portion to our lives now, today. All right, so we should be looking for those things that could apply. And if you have a question about how it could apply, if it does apply, that's what the Q&A is for. That's what our Midrash is for. You can ask Rabbi how it relates, if it relates, and he'll tell you. So we're really excited about that. So we normally start with praise and prayer time at the beginning of our services. So we want to start here locally with prayer and praise. We ask that you keep it to the most urgent. Try to limit the backstory, because I know we have hundreds of people online, if not thousands, by the time the Midrash comes, and so we want to be considerate. So if you're online, you can start typing in your prayers and your praises now, and we'll start here locally with Miss Sarah Beth.
Shabbat Shalom, Elder.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm actually not sure which one this is, a prayer or praise. Let's go with both. I want to ask prayer first. It seems I have re-injured my back. This one is got the potential to be a little worse, a little bit more concerning. So prayer. On the praise side, I am already very much appreciating this next level, this next trial, this next testing, showing me where I am, what I need to still work on. All of that is already revealed. I'm so excited to see what Abba does with this. So,
Amen. Praise. Amen. What a great attitude to be expecting growth. To be expecting growth. Most people look at the trial or the tribulation as, even though we know Scripture says come to make us stronger, a lot of times we get caught up in the midst of the trial or tribulation and not recognizing or looking forward to the growth or what we can get out of it, like we talk about the Torah portion. What can we get out of it? We should be looking for that. So as we go through life in challenging situations, we should be looking at what can we learn from it, how can we grow from it, not look at it as a failure, but look at it as a lesson learned. Because you only fail when you stop trying. When you fail to get up again, that's when you fail. But as long as you get up and you keep trying, it's a lesson learned. We need to look at it a little differently, change our mindset, and that might help us as we go through these challenging situations. Ultimately, don't we all know that Abba's in complete control? That either he causes or allows? So when these trials and tribulations come, and he said they come to make you stronger, then he already has a purpose, an intent for the trial or the tribulation. It's just a test. This is a test of the emergency broadcasting system. Beep! How many of you turn the TV off and run from the beep? Beep! Because it's annoying, right? How annoying is it to Abba when we're hard-headed and going through a trial or tribulation, all we doing is crying, help me, please. Sometimes we need to step back and just laugh at it. I was talking to somebody today, not today, sometime this week. I lost my days. I don't know. I know it's Shabbat. Praise Yah. But I was talking to somebody this week, and I was saying, wouldn't it be funny if the next time a trial or tribulation came up in your life that you looked at it and laughed and said, like Rabbi says, come on, give me your best shot. There you go, Jessica. But anywho, I ain't gonna prolong it. All right, Jessica, what you got? Since you already started singing and dancing and she's about to fall over. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Praise him through your trials.
Amen.
So first, unspoken praises and prayers for me. Don't want to talk about it, but Abba's been so good.
So good.
And he's hurting me so bad.
So bad.
I am laughing through it, laughing, crying, all this stuff, all the feels. But more importantly, prayers for one of my coworkers who's also kind of like a big brother. He isn't in the walk, but both he and his wife were involved in a car accident. And the car, a teenager T-boned them, broke both of their ribs, and he's got 2 black eyes, and his wrist is broken, and neither one of them can take off work. So his wife has tried to take off a day, and her job told her, look, you're going to get fired. You've got to come in. So they're both working, muddling through all of those injuries, and it's just really rough. And then I have another friend. I have another friend who is, she has 4 children, and she lives in Florida, and life has just really hit her hard. So they're about to be homeless, and like, it's not that she can't afford another place. She cannot find one, and the person she's renting from is selling her house. So just prayers that she's able to find a place to live, and also for her kids and their behavioral health issues.
Amen. And praise y'all for you being able to even offer that up for a prayer and a praise. You do that quite often for the employees or your coworkers, and that's really awesome. So really appreciate that. Keep it up. Keep it up. All right, Miss Kat, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Elder Billy. I just want some praise, please, or ask for praise, please. For my house hunting search, I might have found something, but I'm, just prayer.
She wants prayer. She has a prayer and a praise that she finds a house in her house hunting. In case you missed that. You said she can have your house. What'd you say? Shabbat Shalom, Brandy. We missed you.
Shabbat Shalom. I know I missed you guys so much. It was awesome seeing y'all. I was having fun though, but it was great seeing y'all. It was good. It was good seeing everybody. It really was. I missed y'all so much. It struck my blues. I just for a second. I want to give a huge praise. I only made it to one class before we went on vacation for the level up. BTW, while we were on our vacation, somebody had a sign at the coffee bar and said, level up your coffee. I was like, Rabbi done found me on my vacation.
He did.
So, but
he was at the ice cream stand.
He was. Which they didn't have on this one. So no, somebody had to give it to you.
That's why he wasn't on that.
I know. But I went to one class, and he passed out handouts, and before he even started, and I was reading it. He went over. One sentence struck me. You receive something, you want to stop and kind of chew on it for a little bit. That's how I do it, so I don't take on too much. One sentence has changed my life. And so with work, my prayer is just so much happened with how he counseled me to do this one thing and that one sentence on that one sheet. If that's all I got from that class and I never go to another class, that's what I needed, but I'm still going to go. But I did what he counseled me on. And when I tell you the domino effect has been so tremendous, it's overwhelming. And so I'm asking for, first, huge praise, because I still can't process all of it. And it was right when I got back. Just so much was already in the works while we were gone that when I got back, it was like bam, bam, bam.
Wow.
So, but a prayer, because it involves stepping way out of my comfort zone, way out of my comfort zone. So just prayer for that. And also continue to pray for the guy at my job I was telling you about, Daryl, a.k.a. Israel. His real name's Daryl. He's going to try to join us in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome.
So he's been very inspired and just coming every day, like, what about this? And I was like, watch this video. And he's on fire. Like, he belongs here. I know he belongs here. Like, you can tell he's a mixed nut like one of us, right? But so just keep him in your prayers. And then also a prayer for my supervisor. He is a very, very talented man. And the changes are affecting him greatly in not such a good way. So just pray that whatever Abba has for him, that it glorifies the Father in his eyes. Thank you.
Awesome. And she's not going to tell us what that one thing was. She's going to make us just anticipate in agony. Miss Marlene, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. So first of all, I just wanted to give a prayer and a praise for Miss Tiffany. She told me to, because she don't want to get on the mic again or whatever she was saying. So anyway, she is back in the hospital, and several of us visited her, and I had the privilege of hanging out with her a bit and chatting. And so she's in great spirits. She is responding to the medication they have her on. And so let's just, keep her in prayer and, positive thoughts her way,
Amen.
And then, so I just wanted to make sure I got that out. And then I want a huge praise for my trip last weekend to Milwaukee to see my beautiful, chubby-cheeked grandson, Apollo. He's so sweet.
Oh, man.
It was a wonderful time with my children, my sister. We fellowshipped with one of the remote congregants in Wisconsin for Shabbat. My sister stayed for the service.
Wow.
She was just going to drop me off, but then she decided to stay. And she loved the service. She danced with us in a circle. It was fun.
Oh,
it was a great
man.
time. So hopefully my sister has a slow leak and her eyes are being open, but we'll see what the Father does.
Amen.
Had some other praiseworthy things with my children. My daughter, she had like a urgency, and she's agnostic. And so she called me, and I was telling her when she called me crying, and when she told me what happened, I said, well, I'm going to pray. She said, thank you. And then later in the conversation, she said, well, I called you because I knew you would pray because you believe in God. And I was like, you're agnostic, and you're telling me you called me because you knew I would pray. I was like, well, I think you believe in God too. And she was like, no, so I'm like, okay. So I think, the Father's working on her. So that was really, I felt like that was a positive interaction, because in the past, she's kind of gotten irritated with me for talking about praying, so. And then I had a challenging time with my flights being delayed and missing my connecting flight and being stuck in Atlanta. And I appreciate the Mishpachah that reached out to me to offer support. It was really a blessing. And I had a good smack on the wrist or on the hand or whatever by you, and I appreciate that, because
Me? I don't smack people.
Yeah.
I'm a nice guy.
It was a little tiny, smack with a wet noodle.
Oh.
So it was.
I'd rather be the other guy. No.
So, I just want to say that I didn't even see it as a ministerial urgency, or, I guess I'm not thinking about what a covering does and all that stuff. And so I just want to encourage any people who, this is their covering, to reach out if you have a covering need. And I guess I didn't even see it as a covering issue. I didn't see it as an urgency. I just was like, well, just do what I got to do.
We just wanted you to come back to work and be on time. That's all we wanted. Because we missed you. The phone was just ringing and ringing. I was getting tired and tired. No. We did miss you. I'm sure everyone did. We did miss you. But.
Yeah, so I just appreciate you, and thank you for,
Appreciate you too.
Reminding me that, I do have a covering, and that's what the covering's for, to call in emergencies or whatever. And I'm not alone, so thank you.
We love you. We're here for you. Amen. Amen. Miss Tamara.
Hey.
Shabbat shalom.
I just wanted to come up here quickly and ask for prayer for Rabbi Tom and Rebbe and Joanne. Rob and I had an opportunity to visit with them yesterday, and it's always a pleasure.
Amen.
And just let them know that we are missing them dearly, and we hope they get better soon.
Yeah.
And we love you.
Amen. I was going to mention it as well. Rebbetzin wanted us to let you know that she is home. She had some medical situation happen. She was in the hospital for a day or two. She got out. She got her procedures done, and she's home resting. She would appreciate if you guys did not bother her. Her or Rabbi Tom, let them get some rest, please. So they won't be here tonight, and they won't be here tomorrow. They're going to get some rest. So please refrain as much as you can which means not at all. Do not call them. Do not bother them. Give them some rest. They are fine. We have been checking on them, and we've been taking care of Rabbi Tom behind the scenes. You guys probably didn't even know. Rabbi and I were running missions and errands, and we had a lot of help from the Shamish, as you heard Tamara say. So we wanted to keep them, from being bothered, being overwhelmed with the amount of love and appreciation you guys would show if we said we needed some help providing for them. We didn't need any help. We did provide for them. They're home resting, and they'll be here as soon as they get enough rest and can come here. But everything is all well, so we praise you out for that. So thank you for everybody. Continued prayers for them, for both of them to continue to heal. He had jaw surgery, as you heard, a week ago, and then she had a procedure a few days ago. But both of them are doing well. We talked to them. They're two strong individuals. I'm always just so very amazed at what Yah has done in both of their lives and the resiliency that they have to get back on it. Rabbi Tom had surgery on a Monday, and he was on the phone talking Wednesday with 2 fractured jaws. And it was like, this man is amazing. But I have the joy and honor of working with 2 amazing men, and so I'm very happy, and the amazing wives that they have by their side, because they couldn't do it without them. So shout out to all the Rebbitzins and the rabbis as well, and the Shamish and their support mechanisms, and my beautiful wife that helps me to do what I do as well. So great job. All right, speaking of the Shamish, we have a Shamish's wife, Miss Beth. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I have a prayer and a praise, and y'all, tomorrow is the big day.
It is the big day.
Because it'll be Sunday in Australia tomorrow. So anyways, tomorrow evening is the big day for them, for Ollie and Shannon. Amen. So we're just going to pray for them and their happiness and their growing, and for all the Hershey's over there and everything going on. And we love you guys and miss you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Oh, it's so sweet. Don't worry, we're going to get them here as soon as we can. Don't you worry. They've been trying, and we've been trying to help. They're going to get here. Don't you worry. All right, live stream, what you got?
Okay, from MTOI Odessa, prayers for Rosita to feel better. She's throwing up again. From Miss K, need prayer for me to stand firm in the faith, and the sadness will not weigh me down. Job interview today was okay. Hopefully I can advance to the next stage. From Vic, I would like to give a massive praise that I know my little girl, my baby B, is safe. I'd like to ask prayer that Abba make a way for us to talk again, and Shabbat Shalom. Amen. Shirley Akpalu, I have a dentist and cardiology appointments next week. Need prayers that everything is all right. Mm-hmm. From Michael J.E., thanks to Almighty Abba that we are safe during a rainy time which flooded our city of Auckland, New Zealand. Prayers for those who are in distress over the mess from the storm. Courtney Shover praises someone is coming to look at the house Sunday. Prayer this is the one and sells quick so we can be with you, all of you.
Amen.
Yep. From Vaskin, praise I made it to the Hershey's and get to celebrate Oliver and Shannon's wedding tomorrow, which is Sunday over in Australia. Amen. Praise we get to celebrate Shabbat as a mishpachah. Prayers no technical issues during the wedding. Amen. Melissa Rogers, prayers for a quick return of my car from Hyundai. It's getting a new motor, and I'm learning patience.
Amen.
Stairway to Heaven prayers, please, for my niece and her family that have some legal troubles. Carolyn G. Prayers, please, for upcoming surgery this Tuesday. Thank you. Chris Andrews, from Becky, praise. Doctors discovered my dad had C. diff, so he may not be in his final stages of leukemia. He is responding well to antibiotics and knows who he is now. Prayers for our relationship.
Amen.
Simon Gibbs, praise. After a very quiet work week, I chose not to stress, kept my shalom, and trusted the process. Just got confirmation that a client wants to proceed with a $170,000 project.
Wow. Amen.
Robert and Sarah Brackett, praise the Father for humbling me. Pray for strength in my pain and miss you all. Amen. We have many unspoken. We have some people and some praises and prayers that they were able to share some teachings to some of their friends, coworkers, neighbors, and then just asking for prayers for eyes to be open and ears to hear. That's some just a few of employment issues, or people looking for employment or have gotten new employment. Janet Hoffman just said Shabbat Shalom from all of them, the whole family. They went to Texas to visit, so they're going to be spending Shabbat with the Houston group.
Awesome. Shabbat Shalom. We miss you guys.
Some from Miss Pearl Blenman, please pray for safe travel back home to Trinidad on Sunday.
Amen.
And she's still enjoyed and talking about Sukkot 22 when she was here.
Amen.
Judith York, awesome, praise Elohim, MRI done and no surgery needed, just continue physical therapy.
Amen.
Miss K prayers, a coworker has problems with her spine. She is deciding whether or not to go for surgery. She doesn't like to have blood transfusion. Shared Torah with her, and she will try the new diet.
Amen.
Delia Alonzo prays for the covering I have through Rabbi Steve, an elder, and Rabbi Tom. Prayer for severe pain in my abdomen. Ariel, from Ariel Bitrich, says prayer for my client's brother diagnosed with type 2 diabetes this week and had surgery today for a mass. Some general prayers for financial and health blessings. And I think that has got us caught up on all the urgents.
Amen. Amen. We also want to keep in prayer all those that have reached out this week. We had double Mondays and double Fridays, but all in all, I'm just so grateful that it's Shabbat, that we can lay our concerns at the feet of the King, and that we can go into the Shabbat with clean hands and a pure heart, focusing on being restored and refreshed in Him. So I'm just so very excited. So we're going to have one of the men raise their hand so he can come up and pray. All right, we'll let Andrew do it. I saw his hand first. Welcome back. Like a new man coming off that cruise. Look at that, new man. Amen.
Abba, Father, we come before you to bring to you our praise reports and prayer requests. Please accept our appreciation for your wonders in our lives and answer each request according to your divine will for each of us. You never fail, although there are many ways in which we have failed. Yet, as we correct our ways, we know that your loving kindness towards us continues to endure. We thank you for revealing yourself to us through your word and pray that we would learn to hear your voice. As we listen to our rabbi teach, please open our ears to hear and our hearts to purpose applying the word that we hear so that we may become transformed into the likeness of our Messiah. We bring this prayer to you in the name of Yeshua, our Messiah. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Awesome prayer. All right, so if you're just joining us, this is our Friday night Torah study. We do this every Friday night with the exception of feast at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. So if you're joining us, you can like and subscribe so we can just get a little higher up on the charts on YouTube, and we can be available. The whole purpose and point is that we might be available to the whosoever's that might be looking for what we provide. So that's why we do that, and we're excited as we continue to grow. So what we do is we're going to go through the Torah portion. Tonight's Torah portion is Bo, which means go. Bo, that means go. All right, and that's Exodus 10:1 through Exodus 13:16. There's 7 readings, so we're going to go through the readings. I'll have the reader come up. I'll say a blessing over the reader. They'll read their portion. After they read their portion, I'll do a blessing over all of the readers. Then we'll have some brief announcements, and after that, Rabbi Steve will take us through the Midrash, where you have the opportunity to ask any questions for things you may not understand or trying to figure out how it may relate to your life now, because that's what we all should be looking for. How can we get something out of tonight's reading that we can apply to our lives? So you may have some questions about that. And if you do, great, because Rabbi will be out to explain and to help guide and give us the correct context, because context is everything, right? We learned that. So give us the correct context on how we should apply it and how we can apply it in our life today. So I'm excited about that. So if our 7 readers would come up, they already went ahead and marked their seats. I hope they remember who Bible is what. All right, Sarah Beth is first. Awesome. I know who she is. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Sarah Beth that's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity upon all the works of her hands. Amen. All right, you're going to take us from 10:1 through 10:15.
And Yahweh said to Moshe, "Go into Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his servants, so that I show these signs of mine before him, and that you relate in the hearing of your son and your son's son what I have done in Mizraim, and my signs which I have done among them, and you shall know that I am Yahweh." And Moshe and Aaron came in to Pharaoh and said to him, "Thus said Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, till when shall you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, so that they serve me. Or else, if you refuse to let my people go, see, tomorrow I am bringing locusts within your borders, and they shall cover the surface of the land, so that no one is able to see the land. And they shall eat the rest of what has escaped, which remains to you from the hail. And they shall eat every tree which grows up for you out of the field. And they shall fill your houses, and the houses of all your servants, and the houses of all the Mitzrites, which neither your fathers nor your fathers' fathers have seen, since the days that they were on the earth to this day." Then he turned and went out from Pharaoh. And Pharaoh's servants said to him, "Till when will this one be a snare to us? Let the men go, so that they serve Yahweh, their Elohim. Do you not yet know that Mitzrayim is destroyed?" And Moshe and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh, and he said to them, "Go serve Yahweh, your Elohim. Who are the ones that are going?" And Moshe said, "We are going with our young and our old, with our sons and our daughters, with our flocks and our herds we are going, for we have a festival to Yahweh." And he said to them, "Let Yahweh be with you, as I let you and your little ones go. Watch, for evil is before your face. Not so, you men go now and serve Yahweh, for that is what you desired." And they were driven out from the presence of Pharaoh. And Yahweh said to Moshe, "Stretch out your hand over the land of Mitzrayim, for the locusts to come upon the land of Mitzrayim, and eat every plant of the land, all that the hail has left." And Moshe stretched out his rod over the land of Mitzrayim, and Yahweh brought an east wind on the land all that day and all that night. Morning came, and the east wind brought the locusts. And the locusts went up over all the land of Mitzrayim, and settled within all the borders of Mitzrayim, very grievous. There had never been locusts like them before, nor would there again be like them. And they covered the surface of all the land, so that the land was darkened, and they ate every plant of the land, and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left. And no greenness was left on the trees, or on the plants of the field, in all the land of Mitzrayim.
Amen. Thank you, Sarah Beth. Next up, we have Philip. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Philip, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity upon all the works of his hands. Amen. All right, you're going to take us from verse 16 to the end of the chapter.
Pharaoh then called for Moshe and Aharon in haste and said, "I have sinned against Yahweh, your Elohim, and against you. And now, please forgive my sin only this once, and pray to Yahweh your Elohim that he would only turn away this death from me." And he went out from Pharaoh and prayed to Yahweh. And Yahweh turned a very strong west wind, which took the locust away and blew them into the sea of reeds. Not one locust was left within all the border of Mitzrayim. However, Yahweh strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not let the children of Israel go. And Yahweh said to Moshe, stretch out your hand toward the heavens, and let there be darkness over the land of Mitzrayim, even a darkness which is felt. And Moshe stretched out his hand toward the heavens, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Mitzrayim for 3 days. And they did not see one another, nor did anyone rise from his place for 3 days, while all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. And Pharaoh called to Moshe and said, go, serve Yahweh. Only leave your flocks and your herds behind. Let your little ones go with you too. But Moshe said, you yourself are to provide us with slaughterings and ascending offerings to prepare for Yahweh our Elohim. And our livestock are to go with us too. Not a hoof is to be left behind. For we have to take some of them to serve Yahweh our Elohim, and we ourselves do not know with what we are to serve Yahweh until we come there. However, Yahweh strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, and he would not let them go. And Pharaoh said to him, get away from me. Watch yourself and see my face no more. For in the day you see my face, you die. And Moshe said, you have spoken rightly. Never again do I see your face.
Amen. Thank you, Philip. Next up, we have Ashley. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Ashley, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity upon all the works of her hands. Amen. All right, you're going to take us into verse 11, and you're going to read the entire chapter. Chapter 11, I'm sorry. Chapter 11, and you're going to read the entire chapter.
And Yahweh said to Moshe, I am bringing yet one more plague on Pharaoh and Mitzrayim. After that, he is going to let you go from here. When he lets you go, he shall drive you out from here altogether. Speak now in the hearing of the people, and let every man ask from his neighbor, and every woman from her neighbor, objects of silver and objects of gold. And Yahweh gave the people favor in the eyes of the Mitzrites. And the man Moshe was very great in the land of Mitzrayim, in the eyes of Pharaoh's servants, and in the eyes of the people. And Moshe said, thus said Yahweh, about midnight I am going out into the midst of Mitzrayim, and all the firstborn in the land of the Mitzrayim shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on his throne, even to the firstborn of the female servant who is behind the handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Mitzrayim, such as has never been or ever shall be again. But against any of the children of Israel, no dog shall move its tongue against man or against beast, so that you know that Yahweh makes distinction between Mitzrayim and Israel. And all these servants of yours shall come down to me and bow down to me, saying, get out, you and all the people at your feet. And after that I shall go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in great displeasure. But Yahweh said to Moshe, Pharaoh is not going to listen to you, in order to multiply my wonders in the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh. However, Yahweh straightened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not let the children of Israel go out of his land.
Amen. Thank you, Ashley. Next up, we have Jessica. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Jessica, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity upon all the works of her hands. Amen. You're going to take us into chapter 12, reading verses 1 through 16.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aharon in the land of Mitzrayim, saying, this new moon is the beginning of new moons for you. It is the first new moon of the year for you. Speak to all the congregation of Yisrael, saying, on the 10th day of this new moon, each one of them is to take for himself a lamb, according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of the beings. According to each man's need, you make your count for the lamb. Let the lamb be a perfect one, a year-old male. Take it from the sheep or from the goats. And you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same new moon. Then all the assembly of the congregation of Israel shall slay it between the evenings. And they shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and on the lintel of the houses where they eat it. And they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted in fire with unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat it raw, nor boiled at all with water, but roasted in fire, its head with its legs and its inward parts. And do not leave of it till morning, and what remains of it until morning you are to burn with fire. And this is how you eat it: your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And you shall eat it in haste. It is the Pesach of Yahweh. And I shall pass through the land of Mitzrayim on that night, and shall strike all the firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim, both man and beast. And on all the mighty ones of Mitzrayim I shall execute judgment. I am Yahweh. And the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I shall pass over you, and let the plague not come on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Mitzrayim. And this day shall become to you a remembrance, and you shall celebrate it as a festival to Yahweh throughout your generations. Celebrate it as a festival, an everlasting law. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. Indeed, on the first day you cause leaven to cease from your houses. For whoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that being shall be cut off from Israel. And on the first day is the set-apart gathering, and on the 7th day you shall have a set-apart gathering. No work at all is done on them, only that which is eaten by every being, that alone is prepared by you. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much. Great reading. All right, Miss Rhonda. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may bless Miss Rhonda, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family, and blessing and prosperity upon all the works of her hands. Amen. All right, you're going to take us from verse 17 to verse 34.
And you shall guard the festival of Matzot, for on the same day I brought your division out of the land of Mizraim, and you shall guard this day throughout your generations, an everlasting law. And in the first month, on the 14th day of the new moon, in the evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the new moon in the evening. For 7 days no leaven is to be found in your houses, for if anyone eats what is leavened, that same being shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether sojourner or native of the land. Do not eat that which is leavened. All in your dwellings you are to eat unleavened bread. And Moshe called for all the elders of Israel and said to them, go out and take lambs for yourselves according to your clan, and slay the Pesach. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel in the 2 doorposts with the blood that is in the basin, and none of you shall go out of the door of his house until morning. And Yahweh shall pass on to smite the Mitzrites, and shall see the blood on the lintel and on the 2 doorposts, and Yahweh shall pass over the door and not allow the destroyers to come into your houses to smite you. And you shall guard this word as a law for you and your sons forever. And it shall be when you come to the land which Yahweh gives you, as he promised, that you shall guard this service. And it shall be when your children say to you, what does this service mean to you? Then you shall say, it is the Pesach, the slaughtering of Yahweh, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Mitzrayim, when he smote the Mitzrites and delivered our households. And the people bowed their heads and did obeisance. And the children of Israel went away and did so, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe and Aharon, so they did. And it came to be at midnight that Yahweh struck all the firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on his throne, to the firstborn of the captive, who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the livestock. And Pharaoh rose up in the night. he and all his servants and all the Mitzrites. And there was a great cry in Mitzrayim, for there was not a house where there was not a dead one. Then he called for Moshe and Aharon by night and said, Arise, go out from the midst of my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go. Serve Yahweh, as you have said. Take both your flock and your herds, as you have said, and go. Then you shall bless me too. And the Mitzrites were strong on the people to hasten to send them away out of the land, for they said, We are all dying. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, having their kneading bowls bound up in their garments on their shoulders.
Amen. Thank you, Miss Rhonda. Next up, we have TJ. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may bless TJ, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity upon all the works of his hands. Amen. All right, you're going to take us from verse 35 to the end of the chapter.
And the children of Israel had done according to the word of Moshe, and they had asked from the Mitzrites objects of silver and objects of gold and garments. And Yahweh gave the people favor in the eyes of the Mitzrites, so that they gave them what they asked, and they plundered the Mitzrites. And the children of Israel set out from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot, besides the little ones. And a mixed multitude went up with them too, also flocks and herds, very much livestock. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they had brought out of Mitzrayim. For it was not leavened, since they were driven out of Mitzrayim, and had not been able to delay, nor had they prepared food for themselves. And the sojourn of the children of Israel who lived in Mitzrayim was 430 years. And it came to be at the end of the 430 years, on that same day it came to be that all the divisions of Yahweh went out from the land of Mitzrayim. It is a night of watches unto Yahweh, for bringing them out of the land of Mitzrayim. That is the night of watches unto Yahweh, for all the children of Israel throughout their generations. And Yahweh said to Moshe and Aharon, This is the law of the Pesach. No son of the stranger is to eat of it. But any servant, a man has bought for silver, when you have circumcised him, then let him eat of it. A sojourner and a hired servant does not eat of it. It is eaten in one house. You are not to take any of the flesh outside the house, nor are you to break any bone of it. All the congregation of Israel are to perform it. And when a stranger sojourns with you and shall perform the Pesach to Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and perform it. And he shall be as a native of the land. But let no uncircumcised eat of it. There is one Torah for the native born and for the stranger who sojourns among you. And all the children of Israel did as Yahweh commanded Moshe and Aharon, so they did. And it came to be on that same day that Yahweh brought the children of Israel out of the land of Mitzrayim according to their divisions.
Amen. Thank you, TJ. Next up, we have Miss Michelle. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may bless Miss Michelle, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity upon all the works of her hands. Amen. All right, you're our final reader, taking us into chapter 13, reading verses 1 through 16.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Set apart to me all the firstborn, the one opening the womb among the children of Israel, among man and among beast, it is mine. And Moshe said to the people, Remember this day in which you went out of Mitzrayim, out of the house of slavery. For by strength of hand Yahweh brought you out of this place, and whatever is leavened shall not be eaten. Today you are going out in the new moon, Abib. And it shall be, when Yahweh brings you into the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall keep this service in this new moon. 7 days you eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day is a festival to Yahweh. Unleavened bread is to be eaten the 7 days, and whatever is leavened is not to be seen with you, and leaven is not to be seen with you within all your border. And you shall inform your son in that day, saying, It is because of what Yahweh did for me when I came up from Mitzrayim. And it shall be as a sign to you on your hand and as a reminder between your eyes that the Torah of Yahweh is to be in your mouth. For with a strong hand Yahweh has brought you out of Mitzrayim. And you shall guard this law at its appointed time from year to year. And it shall be, when Yahweh brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your fathers, and gives it to you, that you shall give over to Yahweh everyone opening the womb, and every firstborn that comes from your livestock. The males belong to Yahweh. But every firstborn of a donkey you are to ransom with a lamb. And if you do not ransom it, then you shall break its neck. And every firstborn of man among your sons you are to ransom. And it shall be, when your son asks you in time to come, saying, What is this? Then you shall say to him, By strength of hand Yahweh brought us out of Mitzrayim, out of the house of bondage. And it came to be, when Pharaoh was too hardened to let us go, that Yahweh killed every firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim, both the firstborn of the man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore I am slaughtering to Yahweh every male that opens the womb, but every firstborn of my sons I ransom. And it shall be a sign on your hand and on as frontlets between your eyes, for by strength of hand Yahweh brought us up out of Mitzrayim.
Amen. Amen. All right. Thank you, all the readers. Put this back here. All right. Give me a second here. I think we can get rid of this. It's like in the view. There we go. All right, so the blessing after the Torah reading. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam natah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth, has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. All right. Grayson's going to come up and give us the announcements, and then we're going to have our midrash, our discussion portion of the evening.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'd like to start by welcoming our guests. As children of Avraham, we'd like to exemplify his world-renowned trait of hospitality. And for our guests, while we will be doing our best to treat you as guests, we would appreciate it if you could behave as guests. And so even if we do something that you disagree with or you think we're wrong, we would appreciate it if you could conduct yourselves in a Yeshua-like manner. And for our guests, everything that I'm about to get into that we offer as a ministry is 100% free and there to be a blessing to those who will find it. With that being said, we do 2 live streams every week. The first being our Shabbat service, which takes place every Saturday live here on YouTube. And this goes live at the sounding of the shofar at 1:15. And the service typically lasts for a little bit over 4 hours, going till around 5:30. The second live stream that we do is our Torah Study, which takes place every Friday night at 7:30 p.m. following our Erev Shabbat meal that we do here locally at 6. So this service typically lasts for around 2.5 to 3 hours and begins with the word being read and is then followed by a midrash portion with our rabbi, where he'll come out and he'll go over the notes that he has for the chapter, the portion, and then the floor will be open for any questions or comments that were not covered. And so if you want to follow along with us as we go through the Parsha schedule, we do have one available on our website at MTOI.org under our media tab. And so we have the Torah, half Torah, as well as the Brit. And the Brit is on a 4-year cycle, so each year we will be reading one of the Gospels and then the rest of the Brit. And so that is available to you if you want to check that out on our website under the media tab. And so while we have our rabbi to make sure that we're understanding the Torah portion at our level, we have our MTOI Parsha Pearls program to make sure that our children are understanding the word at their level in a way that is fun and engaging for them. And so this does have its very own website. You can go to ymtoi.org, And it is an incredibly robust program that is entirely made by us for us. And this is led by our very own Rebbetzin Julie and her amazing team. And so this program is broken up into 2 different age groups. We have our Gem Seekers, or Katan Aleph, which is ages 5 through 8, as well as our Pearl Seekers, or Katan Bet, which is ages 9 through 99 plus. And we put 99 plus there because we believe that because of the immense amount of value that are put into these programs, that regardless of how many years you've been in Torah, that there is something that you'll be able to glean from it. Especially if you are somebody who is new, this would be an incredible resource for you to use. So each program includes child-friendly stories and lessons, lesson questions, Hebrew word studies, memory verses, word searches, crossword puzzles, mazes, crafts, notebook pages, coloring pages, songs, and a snack. And these are all related to that week's Torah portion. And so these are posted on Sunday, so that way they'll be available to you for you to use throughout your week, as well as you'll be able to have it on Shabbat, as it is guaranteed to take up a fairly large amount of your child's time. As this is a 35-page robust program, and it is the one that we do here up during our Shabbat school. If you are somebody who enjoys listening to the scripture and the word being read, we do have audio scripture readings available on our website. And this is done by our very own Shira Wendling. Shira has done an amazing job reading from Genesis to Revelation in her own narrative style. And for the first 5 books, she even broke it up by Torah portion. So if you want to listen to next week's portion in advance, you can go to MTOI.org, and it'll be under our media tab, and you'll be able to listen to it there. And so we do upload on YouTube every weekday, so Monday through Friday. Starting with on Monday, we have our first look, and this is sort of our movie preview for the full teaching that will be posted later in the week. This is powerful sound bites that are taken out and then put together to really just get you into the right mindset to receive the full teaching that will be posted later in the week. On Tuesday, we have our MTOI Shorts, or otherwise known as Rabbi Trails, on our app. And so these are short 1-minute videos, and so I believe 10 of these are posted on Tuesday. And so these are just short 1-minute clips. And so I would highly recommend that if you find yourself with a few spare minutes in your day, that you can load up one of these, and there's just an immense amount of value that you'll be able to get in just a fraction of the time that it would take to watch a full teaching. And so with that being said, our full teachings are posted on a Wednesday, and we are currently in the Be Set Apart series. And so following each teaching that's posted on Wednesday, we do have our afterburns, which are posted on Thursday. And so this is about an hour-long question and answer time that's following each teaching to really make sure that we received the message that our rabbi was trying to teach us. And so this ends up being almost another mini teaching on its own, as people will ask questions or give comments, and then he will further expand upon things that people were confused about. And so every Thursday afterburn is connected to that Wednesday's full teaching. On Friday, we have our In Focuses, and so these are short 5, 6 to 10 minute long videos where our rabbi really covers a subject in just that amount of time, so we pull it out and we make it a video of its own. And so if while you're watching this, you want to get the full context of what is being said in that video is from, there will be a link on the side so that you can click on the full teaching that it's from if you are interested. Aside from YouTube, we do post on other social media platforms, including Facebook and Instagram. And so our Facebook is MTOI Worldwide, and then the Instagram is slightly different, as it is MTOI_worldwide. And so make sure that you turn notifications on, so that way you can stay up to date with what we have going on here. Another app that we are on is our very own MTOI app. And so we currently are at 1,723 downloads. So we just blew past 1,700 on our way to the big 2K. Very exciting, very exciting. I'm sure we'll be there in no time. And so if while you are downloading the app, make sure that you are going to want to turn the notifications on, so that way if we send out a message, that way you will receive it. And so to do this, you're going to go to the 3 bars on the upper left, go to Settings, Notifications, and then you're going to want to make sure that your general is on green. And so when it is green, you'll know that the notifications are on, and you will be getting the messages sent out from there. We do have other programs that we are doing here as a congregation, and one of them is our Torah Teens on Zoom, and this takes place every Thursday at 1 p.m., and this is led by our very own Rabbi Tom Mitchell. Rabbi Tom's done an amazing job creating an environment where the teens feel like they can not only open up and connect with each other as well as the Word, but also work on how to have that proper relationship with a member in the vertical structure. And so this is a program that is for teenagers. So if you're below 13, you should not be in the room. And if you're above 19, you should not be in the room. If you're a parent and you're concerned about what your child might be learning, that's fine, but make sure that you are off camera, as Zoom is a video chat format. And so we really want this to be a space where the teens can just be themselves, and if there's another adult in the room, they're going to be more inclined to be conscious of what other people are thinking, and they're going to be more inclined to edit. And so just make sure that you are off camera, and then once you feel comfortable with what your child is learning, feel free to step out of the room so that way they can experience the class for themselves without you there. And so if you want to participate, you just simply need to send an email to torahtime@mtoi.org, and then an auto-response link will be sent back to you. And this is every Thursday at 1 p.m. EST. Another program that we are doing is our Hebrew class. And so this is one that is being done here locally. And so this is every other Shabbat after Oneg, with the next one being February 4th. Which means that we still have about a week to get some studying in to make sure that we are ready for the next class, which I know that we will all be doing. Of course. There we go. So as an international ministry in an effort to serve people around the world while at Shabbat where they are, our rabbi has broken the world up into different zones, with each zone having about a 2-hour-long question and answer time with our rabbi. And so the next one that we have coming up will be on February 4th, and this will be the Zone 1 for the local Shabbat Q&A, and this will be taking place live here on YouTube during the regular service time. And so this is Zone 1, so it is the first Shabbat of every month. And so this one is done, it's 50-50, as in so this one will be for people who are here locally, and then the next month it will be for people who are in Zone 1 who are online. And so I know everybody here who is local will be coming with lots of questions ready, and I know that if we don't, that the Zone 1 online people will, and so there will be plenty of questions being asked then. And so this is February 4th. Next one we have coming up after that will be February 11th, and this will be the Zone 2 Shabbat Q&A, and this will be taking place on Zoom at 10 a.m. EST before the regular service time. And so this is for Zone 2, and this is United Kingdom, Europe, Africa, and other countries that are in that time zone. And then, so these are the people who have the priority in terms of asking the questions, but everybody is more than welcome to come and listen to the answers. And so I would highly encourage that everybody take advantage of this opportunity. And if you want to participate, you just simply need to email zoom@mtoi.org, and then a link will be sent back to you. And it is the same link for all of the zone meetings. And so this will be on February 11th, and that will be Zone 2. The one we have coming up after that will be on February 17th, and this will be Zone 3 Shabbat Q&A, and this is for people so this is on that third Friday, as it's Zone 3, third Friday, and so that'll be that Friday night at 10 p.m. EST, following the Torah study that we will be doing here locally. And so this is for the people in the time zone: Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Philippines, Malaysia, China, Fiji, India, I believe, are some other countries at which we have people who are attending from. And so this will be on that third Friday. And so for the zone meetings, I have to apologize to all of you, because as part of my job, I'm here to inform you about the zone meetings, but here to sell you on the zone meetings and convince you that it is worth the 2 hours of your time. And unfortunately, the majority of the people who I get to have that opportunity to share it with don't end up coming. And so I would like to apologize to you all, and I hope that I will eventually find the words that will convince each and every one of you guys that this is something that you guys should do. And I will be doing a better job of that moving forward. And so with that being said...
Well, it's a good thing you said that, because we do blame you for all of this.
With that being said, we are a people that are supposed to be doing our utmost. And so I am not going to sit here and tell you that you aren't doing your utmost if you don't come to the zone meetings. But I will say is that I know for me that I know that I won't be doing my utmost if I'm not there. So I plan on being there, and I would highly recommend and encourage and extend an invitation for all of you to come and join me, because I've gone, I've tasted, I know how good it is, and I hope that you will join me, because I love you guys, and I know that it will be a profound benefit in your life, and it will be a blessing, and so hopefully I will eventually be able to convince you to go. And so, zone meetings! And if you're somebody who's not comfortable asking a question in a zone meeting or by calling our office, we do have a Contact Us page, which is available on our website. You can go to mtoi.org/contact-us, as well as questions at mtoi.org. If you have something that is an urgency, which means in the next 1 to 2 days, if you don't hear something back, it will no longer be of use to you. I would highly recommend calling the offices, as that is the best way to get in touch with leadership. Some important dates that we have coming up are February 21st. We'll be having our Rosh Hodesh for the month of Adar, and this will be at 7 p.m. And so there will not be a meal, but feel free to bring desserts, and they will be enjoyed after. On February 12th, we have the leadership meeting, and this is a date that we should all be paying attention to, as we should be praying for our leaders. These are men that are taking hours out of their day to meet together, to work together, to serve the body and the Father to the best of their ability, and we should be praying for our leaders. And again, this is on February 12th. On March 7th, we have Purim. Third time's the charm. But we will be doing that on Tuesday, March 7th at 6 p.m., and we will be having dinner as well as a play. So that is definitely something to look forward to. Next up after that, we have Pesach coming. And so we will be doing this here from April 5th to the 13th, and we currently have 184 people registered, and registration is still open. And so it is available at mtoi.org/Passover. And so I believe that is all for my announcements. Please help me in welcoming up Rabbi Steve.
All right. Thank you, Grayson. Excellent job. Okay, my only problem is that I think I'm going to come up here and start talking like you do, and then, never mind. Okay, so a couple of things from the announcements that I want to clarify on. These aren't his fault, although he may need to practice more his Hebrew since he said Purim wrong. Okay, but let me clarify a few things. Let's start with the Hebrew class, because some people online are getting confused about these things. First of all, we're not doing it online yet. But I want people online to understand that this is not a Hebrew language class like when you took a language in high school, you took Spanish, you took French, you took whatever, okay? This is not that kind of class. The language, or the part of the class that I'm trying to teach you, the part of the language I'm trying to teach you is that it's a different alphabet, right? A different aleph bet. So I want you to be able to read the Hebrew words and pronounce them correctly. So I'm not teaching you the meaning of the words. I'm not teaching you the grammar that goes with the words. At this point, it's a very basic intro so that if I put Hebrew up on the screen, you can read it and pronounce. By read it, I mean you can pronounce the words correctly. Okay? All right. Because I've had some people contact us thinking that they really need to have this class, and they were pushing for when it's going to come online because they want to be able to speak or understand the language in a much more deep way. I'm not teaching that class. Okay? Now, a couple other things real quickly here with Passover, which he just mentioned, the Pesach thing. Guess what? It's that time of year for me to smack all of you. Why are all you local people still not registered? I know a lot of you are, but a lot of you aren't. Because there's more than 184 of you just here locally. And I can promise you that a good half of those 184 are not local. Why do I have to do this every year? You know you're coming. I know you're coming, but you have to register. This is a very, very old, it's like, you know how to say this is getting old? This has gotten really old. Okay? We need to plan things. Marlene is going to be not happy when a whole bunch of these all come in at once at the last minute. Why would you do that? Okay? If you know you're coming, how about being respectful and getting in your registration? No. Okay. She said, can she get reserved seats since she already registered? You know why? Because it says, you know what the scripture says? To the servant that does what's expected of them? You useless servant. There you go. You were expected to get it in, and that's what you get. All right. That should be a lesson to all of you before you start shouting out stuff from the audience. It will be used against you quickly. All right. All right, now. Okay, so that was the Passover stuff. I just wanted to remind you about that. Now, last thing, well, actually two more things real quickly that had to do with what Grayson already said. The zone meetings, okay, for those of you, I know he's really trying to encourage you to go to the meetings. What you need to understand is, I don't care if you go or not, but you might miss out on something. Because I'm going to answer questions you may already have, or questions you didn't even know you had because you thought you already knew the answer, then someone asked a question, and I answered, and you're like, oh, that wasn't what I thought it was. And those are things that are not recorded. They're not necessarily anywhere else except at the meeting. And so you'll miss out on all of those things. I have 2 hours of little mini sermons is basically what it is. Someone asks a question, you get a little mini sermon. Just an encouragement that you might want to go ahead and be there, okay? And then lastly, I don't know why this is confusing, but we do have 1 or 2 people confused with this. The teachings that post on YouTube are at least, at this point only, but at least 1 week behind, sometimes more. Because sometimes when we have a holy day, I've got lots of teachings that I've done, and it's harder to keep up with them each week because we're only posting 1 a week. Okay, so right now, part 21 is posting. Somebody got really confused and said, when I got up in front of everybody live and said, part 22, that they just spent all week listening to 20, that it was supposed to be 21. No, YouTube is a week behind, unless you're watching the live stream. The live stream is up to date, but then when Marty produces the videos and cuts them up into first looks and then the full teachings and the afterburns and all that stuff, those are at least 1 week or more behind. Okay, so yes, part 22 will be posting next week. I'm going to be teaching part 23 tomorrow. All right, so I didn't make a mistake on what part we're doing. You know how I know? Because I checked back to the last week's live stream to make sure what part I did. Just to make sure I'm on the right number. Okay? Because after the first 8 or 10 or 12, I lose count. All right, now. So, tomorrow night, for all of you that are interested, we have a very special opportunity. Tomorrow night at 11 p.m. Okay, tomorrow night at 11 p.m., Oliver Hersey and Shannon Langton are getting married. In Australia, which is why we're doing it at 11 p.m., which will be 3 in the afternoon their time, okay? So if you would like to attend the wedding, it's going to be in the Zone Zoom room, okay? The international Q&A room, the link that you use to go to the Zone meetings. So everybody's welcome. They told me to invite you. Okay, I'll announce it again tomorrow. So it'll be tomorrow night, 11 p.m., okay, our time here. You got, wherever you're watching, whatever, do the math and figure that out. Right now it's 8:38 here. And so whatever time you have with you where you are, okay? But it'll be 3 or just figure out 3 in the afternoon, Australia time. But we're going to be streaming that or Zone meeting it on Zoom, and you're welcome to attend. I will be performing the wedding from here. Okay. So that's at 11 o'clock tomorrow night. All right. Then also, for those of you in the Level Up class, okay, the next class is February the 5th. I do want to let you know for future, for people that didn't take the class, you said, I don't know if it's going to be worth it, and this, whatever excuse you came up with. Did you hear what Brandy said? Others have said similar things. She got 1 life-changing sentence How much is that worth to come to something that you might just get? She didn't say the whole class. It was only the first class. Didn't even take the second class yet. She was out of town. Okay, by the way, for those in the class, on the Level Up page on the MTOI site, where you need a password to get to it, is the first class video, and the second class video will be up this week. Okay? So if you missed the class, you can watch the video. Okay, those are only for people who have the password and who have taken the class, all right, or paid for the class. But just think about that for the next time when you hear people come up and they say that they got a life-changing insight. And she said, I don't know what it was, but it was one sentence. She said, it was one sentence, made all the difference. That's why I tell you all the time to take these type of classes, because all you need is that one discernment that can make so much different in your life. Well, how much is that worth? That one insight that if you apply it can just change everything. Okay? All right, so our next class is February the 5th. The giving statements are going out. Has anybody gotten their giving statements? Okay, a couple of hands. Okay, because the giving statements are going out. They're being sent out by our third-party accounting firm that does all of our bookkeeping, so you should get that. I've seen what they look like because we started receiving them. There's a nice little card in there that has the contact info for them in case you have any issues with what they gave you in your giving statement, and so please contact them directly. If you have not gotten your statement yet, don't contact us. They have until the end of the month, so they have a couple more days to get them out. So if you don't get it by the end of the first week of February, sure, contact us and we can contact them and find out if anything went sideways in the system. Okay? If there's any issues with your statement, don't contact us, contact them. They have all the information, I don't. If you do not get a satisfactory response from them, please contact me, because then I will then address why they didn't give you the satisfactory, response. Okay? All right. Because some of you keep contacting us for those statements. We don't have them. Okay? We have an outside firm doing all that. All right, and I think that's going to cover it for my part of the announcements. Let's go ahead and get into this week's Torah portion. All right, now, this portion brought to you by, this portion, starting in chapter 10. So if you're new and you've not heard how I do this, I'm not going to teach you the Torah portion. Okay, we don't have enough time to do that in just one little setting for the next hour or whatever time we have. But I am going to try to hit some of the important highlights that you should be aware of and give you maybe some insights so you understand those highlights as best I can. Okay, so don't think of this as a Torah portion teaching where I'm going to teach you the whole portion. Nor is it a teaching like a lot of people do where they're just going to take little sections out of it and turn it into a whole teaching. I've done that in the past, okay? But I want to make sure I hit some of the highlights and bullet points that I think are important. And there's a lot of important things in this Torah portion. And some of them are explained in detail in certain teachings that I've already done, and I will refer you to those. Okay, and remember, for those of you that are new, I can shamelessly promote anything that I've done because they're all free. So it doesn't sound like, oh, he's just trying to sell us a teaching. I don't have anything to sell you. All the teachings are free. Okay, so I tell you the teaching is because the more thorough answer is going to be in there. All right, now, so let's start off in chapter 10 and in verse 1 and 2. All right? Yahweh said to Moshe, go into Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his servants, so that I show these signs of mine before him, and that you relate in the hearing of your son and your son's sons what I have done in Mitzrayim, and my signs which I have done among them, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. This is an insight as to why he strengthened Pharaoh's heart in the way he wanted to go, why he hardened Pharaoh's heart. Okay, because sometimes people ask, why would he do that? Well, here he explains it, okay? He gives us at least one of the reasons that he did this, so that it would be a witness to everyone of his judgments. And that's what he says in other parts of the chapters leading up to chapter 10, that he wanted to show his signs, his wonders, and his judgments. Now, in verse 3, it says, and Moshe and Aaron came into Pharaoh and said to him, thus said Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, till when shall you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go so that they serve me. Okay, so I want to know, meaning you, are you the Pharaoh in your life? Refusing to humble yourself so that you can be free to serve Yahweh? Remember, one of the things I always like you to get out of these readings of the Old Testament and readings of anything in the Scriptures is look for how does what you're reading apply in your life to you? What can you glean out of this that would apply in your life to you? Okay? So I want you to look at this sentence. It says here, till when shall you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go to serve me. I wonder, is there any aspect in your life? I wonder about myself. Is there any aspect in my life where I'm not humbling myself? And because I'm not humbling myself, I'm refusing to humble myself so that I don't get to serve him the way I would like to. Because you can't do that if you're still serving self. And so, if you remember Deuteronomy 8, verse 2, which we go to all the time, it says that he led them through the wilderness for those 40 years. First step, to humble them. And to humble them so that he would then see whether it was in their heart to keep his commandments or not, right? That's Deuteronomy 8, 2. Now, we'll go to verse 4. Man, this really seems like he's going to teach the whole thing. Yes, I've got a bunch of verses in a row. Okay? Verse 4, or else if you refuse to let my people go, see, tomorrow I bring locusts within your borders. Okay, so if you don't humble yourself, if you're not being set free so you can serve Yahweh, he's going to send locusts into your life to devour everything. Think about it. If that's happening in your life, maybe there's a humility problem that has not been addressed. Okay, again, we're taking the literal plagues and looking at them as metaphors for our own journey. So he says, or else Yahweh will bring locusts into your life, I'm saying, devour everything in your life. Because some of you are like, man, everything's just getting eaten up. Well, maybe there's a humility issue that's not being addressed. Maybe there's a stubbornness of heart that's not being addressed. Let's go now to verse 7. And Pharaoh's servant said to him, till when would this one be a snare to us? Let the men go so that they serve Yahweh their Elohim. Do you not yet know that Mitzrayim is destroyed? So what's happening here? Typical worldly reaction, fleshly reaction, to blame others and not recognize your part in the suffering. Okay, they're blaming them. That man is a snare to us. You're not a snare to yourself. That man's the instrument of the Almighty. You've done things that you've done. Don't point the finger. If stuff is happening in your life, don't blame. The Creator, at the very minimum, allowed it to happen in your life for some reason. Okay, we believe that He's in control of everything, and that everything He has, everything that happens is either caused or allowed by Him. That's called emunah in the Hebrew. That's emunah. Faith, trust, full belief that He's fully in control, and that nothing happens that is outside of His either allowing it or causing it. Sometimes when you want to call me up and you want to ask, well, is this Him allowing or causing? It doesn't matter. It is what it is either way. What's the matter if He allowed it or He caused it? It's happening, and you have to deal with it. And He's aware of it because He either let it happen or He caused it to happen. It doesn't really matter which it is. Okay, chapter 10, verse 9. Moshe said, we are going with our young and our old and our sons and our daughters and our flocks and our herds. We are going, for we have a festival to Yahweh. So this word there is actually chag. Okay, so you should all know what the chagim are. These are like the festivals listed in Deuteronomy 16:16. Okay, the shalosh regalim, the 3 chagim, which would be unleavened bread, okay, which is coming up right in here, right, them leaving in Exodus, which is Shavuot, right, and it's Sukkot. So you have Pentecost and Tabernacles. So those are the 3 listed in Deuteronomy 16:16, and they're listed as festivals, and the Hebrew word there is chag, as opposed to moed or moedim, for meetings, okay, for times and festivals, but it's a chag. These are really the pilgrimage feasts. So they're saying we have some sort of festival to meet with Yahweh. So basically, the moedim, the chagim, all these things are nothing more than, if we take it to the very simplest thing, appointed times or meeting times with the Almighty. Because some people want to ask, well, what feast is this to be that they're supposed to go? Don't worry about all that. They know they're supposed to go meet with Him. We call that a chag. Okay? They know they're supposed to go out and celebrate and meet with Him. Now, let's go to verse 15. Okay, I mentioned this last week in the previous Torah portion a little bit because we had at the end of chapter 9, with the hail, that the flax and the barley were smitten in verse 31, but the barley was in the head, or aviv, and the flax was in the bud. And so the wheat and the spelt were not smitten, they were later crops. So this is that word aviv that comes in, and for those that get all obsessed with using this, looking for green barley as or the state of the barley being at this level called in the head, for doing their calendar. And so then I pointed out to you last week, I'm going to remind you again now, that when the locusts come, which is the next thing, and we see this in verse 15, okay, it says, they covered the surface of all the land so that the land was darkened, and they ate every plant of the land and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left. And no greenness was left on the trees or the plants in the field in the land of Mitzrayim. So there wasn't anything green to look at when they were exodusing, when they were leaving. Okay, so let's just kind of keep that in mind. There was no greenness left. So when you listen to the Michael Roods and all the rest of the guys out there that are obsessed with this looking for Aviv thing, understand, number one, nobody ever did this. We don't see it recorded anywhere in Scripture, people looking for the state of the barley. The barley needed to be at a certain state in order to do Shavuot, to start your count, to do the wave sheaf, right? You had to do the Bikurim, you had to do the wave sheaf first, and then start counting your 50 days. The barley had to be in that state. But that's not what it's talking about here. So when it says, and we're going to catch this later on, that they left in the month of Aviv, it says, Aviv in the Hebrew, to a Jew would understand it as, it means spring. Okay? It doesn't mean that you went out and looked for the barley. It means spring. Okay. In verse 21, we now have an interesting plague of darkness where it says that the darkness was such that even darkness which is felt. Could you imagine darkness you could actually feel? It had a weight to it. It had a feel to it. They couldn't see anything. They didn't have any lights. They didn't have their cell phone to turn on their little camera light on it and stuff, their flashlight. It was total blackness. And it was so dark, thick darkness, that it was even tangible. They could even feel it. I mean, that's, wow. Because, see, Yahweh didn't just do something, well, yeah, it can get dark. The clouds can cover. It could be a new moon, so there's no moonlight, and it's dark. He says, no, I'm going to give you darkness that's different. You've never seen darkness like this before. You've never experienced it before. This is darkness you could feel. Okay? Then we get to verse 26. And the livestock are to go with us too. The livestock, again, Moses is talking again to Pharaoh. Okay? He says, the livestock's going to go with us. Not a hoof is to be left behind, for we have to take some of them to serve Yahweh, our Elohim. And we ourselves do not know with what we are to serve Yahweh until we come there. So this is interesting. They're admitting that at this point they didn't fully know what Yahweh's plan was for them after leaving Mitzrayim. I want you to understand that's part of your life too. We are told anyway in the New Testament, we're told that there's going to be a greater exodus. An exodus so great that we're not even going to even talk about the old one anymore because the new one's going to be just paling the old one by comparison into nothingness. It's going to be so huge. But that exodus is still a journey out of some sort of bondage into whatever that is that's coming. Oh, we're told about the kingdom, we're told about the millennium, we're told about whatever, living forever, but we still only know this little bit about what that really looks like. And they didn't either. So this is Moses kind of admitting, he's talking to Pharaoh saying, look, we need to go do this. We don't really know what we're going to be doing necessarily exactly, but we need to go do this. We don't fully know what's going on, but we trust him, we believe him, we're just going to do what he says. Which again is another encouragement to all of you. Stop stopping yourself from doing because you don't fully understand. As long as you know what to do, how to do it, when to do it, etc., it's the why that messes you up. I can understand, well, I'm not going to do until I know what exactly to do. Okay, well, then you need to learn what to do. If there's something to do, you need to know when to do it, where to do it, some of those things. But the why is what messes you up. And you say, well, I'm not going to do this till I understand it. No, you're not going to do it until you want to, is what you're saying. Because I've had guys who don't wear the tzitzit tell me, well, I'm not wearing them until I understand it. You put them on your clothes, it reminds you to keep the commandments. Is this rocket science? No, it's because you're not emotionally ready to do it. That's your problem. And so you use an excuse called, well, I'm not going to do it till I understand it. Okay, let's quickly jump ahead at least to chapter 19. Don't turn there necessarily, but in verse 5, the covenant they're going to make does not require understanding. It says, if you agree to do everything that comes out of my mouth, I will agree to take care of everything else and take you as my people. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he says. And so he didn't say, if you understand everything and review it and study it and decide you want to sign. This is not a contract that he offers them where they can read anything. It wasn't given till after they agreed. Most things you get, okay, here, take this, take it home, review it, the papers, the contract, whatever it is, go through it, get counsel from your attorney or whoever, right? And then you decide whether or not you're going to sign. No, he says, you know who I am, and if you know who I am, then you would understand this offer I'm making. I will take care of everything. You will never have any fear, worries, suffering. Everything will be wonderful if you agree to obey my voice. And he hadn't said anything. He says, I'm going to say a whole bunch of stuff. I want you to sign before you even know what it is. Because I want you to sign based on just who I am and you knowing who I am. What you saw me do to Egypt. What you saw me do bringing you out. What you saw me do parting the sea. What you saw me do providing you with different things on your way to Sinai. And so Moses is saying, yeah, look, I'm doing this not knowing it. I don't know exactly what we're going to be doing, but you're going to provide us with what we need, and we're going to go because Yahweh said we need to take everything, and that's what we need to do. So don't ask me why. I don't know. I just know who he is, and he said, do it, I'm doing it. It's good enough for me. All right, then we get to verse 28 and 29. This is an interesting thing that happens. So Pharaoh says to him, get away from me, watch yourself, and see my face no more. From the day you see my face, you shall die. And Moshe said, you have spoken rightly. Never again do you see my face. Now, the next plague is the killing of the firstborn. The problem that we have to understand is this has always been in the vertical structure. Vertical structure meaning any kind of authority structure. It could be the emperor of Rome. It could be the pharaoh. It could be the king of some country. It could be anything that when you threaten the ambassador, it's like you threaten the king himself. The representative, when you threaten, it's like threatening the king himself. So Pharaoh threatening to kill Moses is like threatening to kill Yahweh. Okay? So you have to understand that's where you need to be really careful. So if you're dealing with someone who's genuinely anointed and appointed, be careful your threats that you might make towards that person. Because Yahweh will hold you accountable if they are. No, you might say, well, I don't think they are, but what if you're wrong? Do you want to roll those dice? Do you want to take that chance? If that person represents him and is his voice and extension, be careful what you say and do. It's still for your free choice. There was a lady one time had an utter meltdown on me over something really stupid. In front of everybody during our after-service, fellowship meal, her children wanted to throw a ball around in this gym we were renting. We didn't have permission to do that. The ball almost hit a baby, so I told them no more ball playing. She pitched an utter fit in front of everybody because I made a decision to stop the ball playing. Then she went to go get her stuff, and she went into one of the classrooms where the children wanted to get her stuff, and she's still bad-mouthing me and just throwing a fit. And my wife went up to her and said, you may just want to be careful. I said, if my husband's anointed and you're going to be attacking like that, you're bringing some stuff on yourself that you probably don't want to do. Just giving you a heads up. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying. So she didn't get in there and say, how dare you talk to? She said, listen, you just may want to think about what you're doing. This is something that we have to understand. Messiah said that all authority comes from above. So anybody in authority, we've got to be really careful about mocking and belittling and disrespecting, no matter how good or bad they are. We have the example of King David, right? David HaMelech. Saul was crazy and trying to kill him. He lost his mind and was trying to murder him. And yet, he knew he should not do anything to Saul because Saul was not put there by him. He wasn't supposed to take him out. And this is a man who was literally lost his mind and was trying to kill him. So this is very important that we get that. So threatening the ambassador is like threatening the one who sent them. All right, then chapter 11. And in verse 2 and 3, they're being told that they're going to go and let every man ask from his neighbor and every woman her neighbor objects of silver and gold. Okay, so this is about getting the silver and the gold. We see this actually play out in chapter 12, verses 35 and 36. Okay, go to chapter 12, and we see the children of Israel had done according to the word of Moshe, and they had asked the Mitzrites for objects of silver and gold, and the garments, etc. And Yahweh gave them favor in the eyes of the Mitzrites, and so they gave them what they asked, and they plundered the Mitzrites. So I like to always show you sometimes where something was said, and then it came out later and was played out. This happens to be very quick between just chapter 10 and chapter 12. 11 and 12, just one chapter. All right, verse 4, we're back in chapter 11. All right, verse 4. Moshe said, "Thus said Yahweh, about midnight I'm going out into the midst of Mitzrayim." Okay, so let's understand by extension what Yahweh does by extension, if you understand what I'm saying. He says, "I am going." Was Yahweh himself going? Or was he sending someone who represented him? It's like he's going. And so we have to understand. It's like when Yeshua said, "If you've seen me, you've seen the Father." I'm not the Father, but if you've seen me, I act like I only speak what he wants me to speak. I only do what he wants me to do. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And so when he says, "I am going," it doesn't mean he himself went through Mitzrayim. But whatever went through Mitzrayim was fully authorized as an extension of him, as if he was doing it himself. In chapter 12 and verse 23, okay, we see a similar thing. It says, "Yahweh shall pass on to smite the Mitzrites, and shall see the blood in the lintel and the two doorposts, and Yahweh shall pass over the door and not allow the destroyer to come into your houses to smite you." So his authority will protect you and not allow the destroyer to destroy you because of the blood on the doorposts. I just want to make sure where I mention, okay, I don't mention that till later in chapter 12, so I'm going to skip that for right here. All right. In chapter 11, verse 5, we're kind of going slowly through this chapter here. "And all the firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on the throne, even to the firstborn of the female servant who is behind the handmill, and the firstborn of the cattle." Okay, so all firstborns. All firstborns. Now, sometimes, well, I'm going to promote something first. Passover Q&A, two-part teaching. It's going to cover a lot of things that are coming up now into chapter 12. The Passover Q&A, part 1, covers most of this. Okay, part 2 covers more things like the Last Supper, etc. But what we need to understand, who was at risk in Egypt of dying? Only the firstborns. So there was a Galilean tradition, because remember, there's a big case being made by people out there, and they get real angry with me when I say this. They're making this big case that the Last Supper was a Passover meal, and it was not. It could not be. It was the Last Supper. But what else could it have been? Well, in Galilean tradition, there was what's known as the fast of the firstborn. And so the night before Passover, they would have this meal and then fast all the way until the Passover meal. So they would get together and have a Last Supper, so to speak, a dinner, and then they wouldn't eat again until the Passover meal. And it was a thing that especially the firstborns would do, the fasting of the firstborn. Now, some of you are going to now start typing in, "Oh, do we need to do this?" No, you don't need to do this. I say things and then people just run with it, okay? You don't need to do that. I'm just trying to explain to you what might have been happening with Yeshua and his disciples. They were all Galilean. So these are things that they would have done as part of their tradition. So let's continue here. So chapter 12 and verse 2. So I told you we're going to get into chapter 12. We got a lot here going on. So in verse 2, it says, "This month is the beginning of months for you. It is the first month of the year for you." So this is now setting up a specific type of calendar. Notice I said type of calendar, not calendar. So this is not necessarily just your daily calendar. This is what we would call the feast calendar, the holy day calendar. So the counting of the holy days starts in this month. He's about to give them the first holy day celebration, and it starts with the month of Aviv. And so we get to the 14th of the month, and we're going to get the explanation of the Passover. So this is not necessarily how they count years. Leviticus 23 lists all your feast days, but Leviticus 25 explains that when you're counting years, like for the Shemitah, or the year of release, the 7-year release cycle, or the 50-year Jubilee cycle, that's actually counted from the 7th month when you have trumpets and atonement. And so that's why it is appropriate, as Jewish tradition has it, to call the Feast of Trumpets the 1st of Tishrei, the 7th month, Rosh Hashanah, or the head of the year. Because it's the beginning of how you count years as opposed to counting months. And of course, people come into this, they learn this much, little bit, and they start adamantly getting in everybody's face because they're so smart. But you don't know what you don't know. There's more than one calendar in your Bible. He counts years starting with the 7th month. He counts time of months for feast days starting in the Aviv, the 1st month. And this is the way he does things. I don't know why he does it. It's his choice, not mine. But I accept that it's his. Remember, whatever he says, I agree. That's kind of the covenant, right? Whatever he says, that's it. All right, now, so we have this instruction here in verse 2 about counting months. This is the first of the year for you, counting the feast cycle, the month cycle, right? Then we get to verse 6. And it talks about this perfect lamb in verse 5, and you're going to keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then all the assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it between the evenings. Okay, so let's understand. Again, I explained this very detailed in the Passover Q&A teaching. This is the timing of performing the Passover and then eating the meal. The Passover has 2 connected but separate elements: performing the Passover and the Passover meal. Performing the Passover is selecting out the lamb and then bringing it on the 14th, slaughtering it, and then roasting it, etc., all the instructions that you're given. That's performing the Passover. And then there's the eating of the meal. So, this performing of the Passover, the timing of it, it says you keep it until the 14th, and then between the evenings. Now, this is where people get all messed up. They don't understand Hebrew. They don't understand all these different things. So some people think this is now the 13th, just about to be the 14th. No, you're going to bring it to the 14th, and then between the evenings, which in Hebrew means afternoon. Okay? It means in the afternoon. When did Messiah die? When did he die? About 3 o'clock. That's in the afternoon. Did he die when they were killing the lambs? Absolutely. Because he was, by symbolic representation, the Passover lamb. Now, he wasn't slaughtered in the temple, so he wasn't literally the Passover lamb. He wasn't done in any way that would have been required here. But he was killed when they were slaughtering the lambs in the afternoon on the 14th. Now, let me settle this Last Supper question. Generally speaking, do you eat the animal before or after you kill it? Just curious. Do you guys kill yours first? Okay. So if they're not killing the lambs till 3 o'clock that next day, then whatever meal he ate was not the Passover. Which, by the way, we know that from the book of John, because the book of John says it. Okay, in John, I'll give you the verse even, okay? I think it's 19. Let me just tell you where it is. All right, John 18:28. I should have told you, bottom of the right-hand page on the bottom. Okay. All right. It says, they led Yeshua from Caiaphas to the palace, and it was early, and they themselves did not go into the palace. This is after the meal they ate. He's already been arrested. They're bringing him back and forth between the palace and Caiaphas, the high priest. He said they didn't go into the palace lest they should be defiled, so that they might eat the Passover. If they had done anything that rendered them tameh, or unclean, they would have had to wait a whole month to the second Passover. And if you've never heard of that before, you'll read about it in the book of Numbers and other places. There is an allowance that if something happens where you can't do the first Passover, not won't, but can't, like you're overseas somewhere or sick or whatever it is, but you can take this Passover in the next month. It's called the second Passover. They didn't want to wait a month. Nobody wanted to wait a month. So understand that in chapter 18, after the arrest of Yeshua, after he ate the meal, they had still not eaten the Passover because it hadn't happened yet. Okay? And don't give me all of these verses. Well, it says that the disciples asked him what to do about the Passover. He said, well, go over to this guy and go get us a room so we can keep the Passover. Well, they did need a space to do that. I mean, he was a good leader and teacher. He knew he was going to die before he got there, but he still needed to make sure he took care of them and got them a room to do it in and have everything lined up. Well, he says, with great desire, I desire to eat this Passover with you. Yes, and he knew he wouldn't get to do it until the kingdom, because he was going to die as the lamb on the day when the lambs were slaughtered. All right, now, so this is part of the timing in chapter 12 and verse 6 through 8 here. Now listen to what it says here. So you're going to keep it till the 14th. You're going to kill it between the evenings. You're going to take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and on the lintel of the house where they eat it. And they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted in fire. With unleavened bread and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. So, on the 14th in the afternoon, they killed the lamb. They then were supposed to roast it. This could take a couple hours. So people say, well, do you eat the meal after sundown? Do you eat the meal? When it was ready, they ate it. It was after sundown. It was most likely because of the way the timing would be. But it wasn't about that you had to wait till a certain moment. They killed it, they prepared it, and then they ate the meal. And they ate the meal, girded with their loins girded and their sandals on and their staff in their hand, etc., ready to go. Because they left the next morning. You have that in Numbers chapter 33. You also have that over here. And so that's the first day of unleavened bread. That's the 15th. On the 15th, they left. So the meal was the 14th going into the 15th. So Passover is performed in the afternoon of the 14th, which is not a holy day. It's a day that you do this thing. The holy day starts that night after sundown when you're eating the meal. When you're eating the meal. Okay. Now there's blood on the doorpost thing. Okay, if you look at verse 13, it says, and the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I'll pass over you, and let the plague not come on you and destroy you when I smite the land of Mitzrayim. The blood was only done this one time. There are crazy people out there. I don't mind calling you crazy because you're crazy. And I mean that because your brain isn't working right. Where do you ever see, since this moment, anybody do that again? Ever. And where do you ever see a prophet or somebody telling people what's wrong with you? Why aren't you putting blood on your doorposts? But yet I get to hear almost once every couple of years, once every 2-3 years, people calling me up saying, the congregation I've been going to, they put blood on their door and all this other stuff. What is wrong with you people? Why are you doing that? This was done once. Okay? And only once. Ever. Except for you crazy people who are doing it. But it was never done other than that. One time. They go through their whole wilderness walk. They go through all of the rest of the book of Exodus, the rest of the book of Numbers, all these places where they're talking about the things that happened in the wilderness, right? Because the book of Numbers is really Bamidbar, which means in the wilderness. Doesn't mean numbers. It's just whoever wrote it in English said, well, they do a lot of census and counting here, so we'll call it the book of Numbers. A lot of numbers in that book. Well, it's called Bamidbar, which means in the wilderness. And all through there, you never see anybody putting blood on anything. All right? Because they did it only once. So let's please understand that. Now, so in verse 14 it says, and this day shall become to you a remembrance, and you shall observe it as a festival to Yahweh throughout your generations. Observe it as a festival and everlasting law. So this is going to be something that's supposed to be done, not the blood part, but the performing the Passover and the meal, because the blood had to do with them leaving with the firstborn plague. Okay? The firstborn plague was only that one night, only that one time, and the blood was for that. The rest of it was a memorial to what happened, right? Let's continue here. And again, in Passover Q&A, I cover this much more thoroughly. Now, in verse 15, we have something very interesting. For all of you people that are going to obsessively clean your house 3 weeks before unleavened bread. It says, 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. First of all, that means that you are supposed to eat it for 7 days. Not just not eat leavened bread for 7 days, but for 7 days you're supposed to eat unleavened bread. Like at least have a piece of unleavened bread every day. Indeed, on the first day you caused the leaven to cease from your houses. When do you do this? On the first of the 7 days. So there needs to not be any leaven on that first day. So you don't have to, I'm saying you don't have to obsess about everything. Just make sure on that first day it's gone. I'm not saying wait till the first day to get rid of it. I'm just saying that's what it says here. It's got to cease. It says you're going to cause the leaven to cease from your houses on the first day you caused it to do it. Sounds to me like on the first day they're taking it all out and throwing it out at that day. I'm not saying you need to wait that long, but just understand, don't freak out if you get close to the last day and you find something. Or that first day, you find something. So then deal with it on the first day. All right? Let's continue. Verse 16. On the first day is a set-apart gathering, and on the seventh day you have a set-apart gathering. So what does a set-apart gathering mean? It's a Sabbath, even if it doesn't fall on a Saturday. It's a Mikra Kodesh, which is a set-apart or commanded assembly, a holy assembly. All right, that's what they're listed that way in Leviticus 23 as Mikra Kodeshim. Okay? Now, so it says here that in verse 16 it says, no work is done at all, only that which is eaten by every being, that you can prepare. This is the verse that tells you for holy days, you can cook only what you're going to eat on the holy day. Because on a Mikra Kodesh, it's saying on the first day and the last day, no work is done except what you need to cook. It didn't say you could do that every Sabbath. It says on a holy day. It didn't say Shabbat there. It says on a Mikra Kodesh, a set-apart gathering. So on holy days, you can cook. You're not cooking for the whole week. You're cooking for that day. Now, if you happen to have enough that you make that you can eat it for leftovers, that's fine, but you're cooking what you need for that day. This is what's important to understand. All right. Next, verse 17 and 18. And you shall guard the festival of unleavened bread, for on the same day I brought out your divisions out of the land of Mitzrayim, and you shall guard this day throughout your generations, everlasting law. It says, that's the day I brought you out. Numbers 33 says the same thing. Okay, in Numbers 33 and in verse 1 or 2. Let me see. Let me get there real quick. Numbers 33 and in verse 1. These are the departures of the children of Israel who went out of the land of Mitzrayim by their divisions. What did he just say in here? He just said this is about when they came out with their divisions. Now, what was that verse? 17. It says, when I brought your divisions out of the land. And Moses wrote down the departures. In verse 3, so they departed from Ramesses in the first month on the 15th day in the month on the morning after the Passover. That next day, on the morrow after the Passover. On the 14th, slaughtered the animal. That night, they ate it, the beginning of the 15th, and they woke up in the morning and they left. Okay? So there's no day in between. Worldwide Church of God taught that. A bunch of people teach that. It's wrong. Okay? There's no space between the two events. You slaughtered the animal, you eat the meal, you leave the next morning. This all happened within 24 hours. Less than 24 hours, really. 3 o'clock or so in the afternoon, mid-afternoon, anywhere after 12. So they're starting the process of everybody going in and their lamb slaughtered and prepared. Then they eat the meal and they wake up and they go. If they even went to sleep, because remember, they're eating the meal girded up. Their staff is in hand, they're ready to go. I don't know about you, but I'm probably not sleeping. Everybody's screaming, wailing, people are dying all over the place. Nobody's sleeping. And they got up in the morning and they left. So let's understand as we're going through this, the timing of these things. All right. Verse 38. Verse 38. And a mixed multitude went up with them, also flocks and herds, etc. So there was a mixed multitude that went. Some of them were Egyptians. Some of them were from other countries that happened to be living in Mitzrayim at the time. This is not just Israel leaving. It's a mixed multitude. What do we get today? A mixed multitude. What was the whole prophecy to Abraham even? You'll be the father of many goyim, many Gentiles, many nations. In other words, there will be a mixed multitude that will come together and we'll all be united in belief in Messiah, where bloodline doesn't matter. It doesn't matter your genealogy. It matters what your choice is. Do you choose the covenant? Let's go to What other verses do I have still over here? Let's get to verse 43 through 49. This is the last thing I want to cover, but it's really interesting. I think this will make some sense. You have, in English, some problems. So I'm going to give you some from the Hebrew to help you fix the problems. So in verse 43, it's going to talk about who can or participate in this Passover deal. It says, Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, "This is the law of the Passover. No son of a stranger is to eat of it, but any servant, a man who is bought with silver, when you have circumcised him, let him eat of it. A sojourner and a hired servant doesn't eat of it. It is eaten in one house. You're not to take any of the flesh outside of it, etc. All the congregation of Israel are to perform it. And when a stranger who sojourns with you shall perform the Passover." Wait a minute, he just said nobody can, it gets confusing. Can a sojourner have it? Can a stranger have it? What's all this about? Let's look at the Hebrew here. Verse 43. It says, "This is the law, no son of a stranger." Okay, the word there is nechar. Nechar. Okay? Nechar means a foreigner, meaning actually someone who is not from your country. Okay, it's from outside your nation. They don't live in your nation. They might be traveling and passing through to some degree, but they're not living there. All right? Toshav is in verse 45. So 45, it says, "A sojourner and a hired servant doesn't eat of it." So a sojourner, a Toshav, is somebody that lives inside of your nation, but they're not one of you. So it's like a resident alien. Okay? They live there. They're amongst you, but they're not part of you. And they're not to eat of it either. Just because they happen to live amongst you, that's not good enough. Okay? Verse 48 says, "But when a stranger sojourns with you and shall perform the Passover," now it's giving you what's called a ger. Ger. All right? Gimel resh. Ger. A ger is a type of stranger we refer to as a proselyte. In other words, someone who is thinking, "I want to be what you are, and I'm looking into this very strongly because I think I might want to covenant." And so he says, look, if a stranger, a ger, a proselyte, wants to be a part of this, then he's got to circumcise. Because there's one rule. You know those verses say there's one law for the stranger and for the native born? The word stranger there is ger. There's not one law for everybody. If you're going to be in the nation, if you're part of the covenanted body, you're expected to observe the commandments. If you're considering, then you're expected to observe the commandments while you're working that through as a disciple or a proselyte. Now, you can always change your mind and decide not to and go walk somewhere else. But if you're going to claim to be wanting to figure this out and walk this out, then you're expected to do it. Now, you cannot do the Passover. It's the only thing that you cannot do uncovenanted. You have, in other words, uncommitted. So a proselyte is still someone uncommitted. So he says, look, if you want to do the Passover, make the commitment. Go ahead and get circumcised and make the commitment. But you have to covenant and make the commitment. He says, I'm not letting you. The Passover meal is a memorial meal for covenanted people. For covenanted people. So this is the only one that's restricted. And so we get people that get upset. They want to come and join us for unleavened bread. They want it for Passover. And so we celebrate for the whole week right here in Cleveland, Tennessee. And we have a big tent, and we have 400 plus people here. But we tell you, but you can't have the meal unless you're covenanted. Now, I'm not going to screen you to see if you're covenanted, but you're going to be told you shouldn't do this if you're not covenanted. And we're not going to have everybody check to make sure you're circumcised either. I'll be nicer than I've been in the past. Okay? Because nobody wants that job. But somebody did have that job back then. They would know if people were circumcised. Okay? Because the key is that you need to be covenanted. Now, where we are today we're in Philippians 2:12. Everybody has to walk out their own salvation in fear and trembling. All right, so that means that I'm going to allow you to do whatever you do, but it's on you. My job is to warn you. Don't do this if you're not committed, if you're not circumcised. People say, well, what about the circumcision thing? Well, I mean, isn't that done away with? And isn't it now circumcision of the heart? Oh my gosh, do you not read your Bibles? I know I'm being a little condescending, but I'm not. Do you know circumcision of the heart was always required? It's in the Old Testament. It's in the first 5 books multiple times. It's not a New Testament idea. It was always both. So please stop that nonsense as an excuse not to get physically circumcised. There's never been a removal of that requirement. Oh, well, what about in Acts 15? Acts 15 was an argument about timing only. The Jewish community did not like the Gentiles coming in, so they said, fine, I know what we'll do. We'll tell them they got to get circumcised before they could even learn any of this stuff. Who would do that? Nobody. Why would you go ahead and circumcise? You don't even know what it is you're signing up for. So James, in his brilliance, says, tell you what, they're going to hear Moses preached in synagogues wherever they live. Let them just refrain from these 4 things. Let them learn Moses, and then if they decide they want a covenant, they'll circumcise. It was never do or don't do. It was do it now before you know anything, or do it when you're ready to commit. So it was all about the timing. That's what the argument was. And so let's not, look, I know there's a bunch of adult men out there going, I don't want to do it. So what? Do you want eternal life? Do you want, well done, good and trustworthy servant? Do you want to please you? Do you want to be obedient and trustworthy? Where are you going to draw the line? I'm going to do whatever Yahweh says as long as I'm okay with it? As long as I like it? I don't know where your thinking is. Okay, and then some of you are going to be thinking, well, but in Christianity, I was told it was all done away with. Well, they lied to you. It wasn't done away with. The early church fathers hated the Jews. They're the ones who did away with it because they didn't want to deal with the Jewish community. And the feeling was mutual. The Jewish community didn't like them either. That rift was going on. You see this in all of Paul's letters. You see this in some of the other apostles' letters. That rift was there. And it was a problem in all their congregations. And some of you are thinking, oh, but now you're trying to talk about works salvation. Absolutely not. I'm talking about works reward, because that's what the scripture talks about. It says you're going to be judged according to your works, and your reward is going to be based on your works. What works? Well, I don't know. How about thus said Yahweh's do this, don't do that? He said to do a bunch of things. He also said don't do a bunch of things. They might be important to do. And if it was important for all of the time before Yeshua came and walked in the flesh, then you can tell me it wasn't important anymore all of a sudden? So for almost 4,000 years it was important. Then all of a sudden at the very end of that 4,000 years, he said, it's not that important. You don't need to do all that stuff. I realized I made a mistake. It's too hard for people. Like Yahweh doesn't make mistakes. It's not hard. It's not too hard for anybody. What's hard? Is it hard to eat different? Is it hard to keep different days? Is it hard to take one day and not work? Is it really that hard to put tzitzit on your clothing? Even the circumcision, is it really that tough? You go and have it done. It hurts for a couple of days, and then it's over. Then it's okay and it's done. I mean, what is so hard about all this? Well, nobody can keep it perfect. Well, that's not true. It can be kept perfectly. Problem is you're trying to keep it perfectly in a world that's so imperfect, it's hard to do it. Because all the temptations around you. Tell me one Torah command that's actually hard to do. Is it hard not to murder? Well, I got a few friends I'd like to. Is it hard not to commit adultery? Well, she's pretty, What is so hard? Because Christianity loves to use that excuse. Well, you can't do all the commands. Nobody can do them. Why would God give them stuff they can't do? Moses tells us in Deuteronomy, it's not so hard for you that you can't do it. It's right here. It's near and in your heart. You don't got to fly up into the heavens to go find it. You don't got to go swim across the sea and have somebody bring it to you. He says very simply, it's not tough to do. Where did it all of a sudden become hard to do? As soon as man realized they could stand up and say, but I don't want to do it, so I'm going to justify not doing it. Because I don't want to do it. That's that humility problem. That's a stubbornness of heart. Look, Moses says this in Deuteronomy 30 and in verse 11. For this command which I command you today is not too hard for you. Is there any ambiguity there? Is there any confusion there? This is not too hard for you. The commands I command you today are not too hard for you, nor are they far off. They're not in the heavens to say, who shall ascend in the heavens for us and bring it to us, nor cause us to hear it, and so we do it, or nor is it across the sea. So someone has to go over there and bring it back to us, but the word is very near to you, in your mouth and in your heart to do it. But we're being told by the mainstream of the world that it's a punishment, these laws. That these are the laws that are against us. These laws aren't against us. They were designed to bring blessing. Deuteronomy 28 says, if you obey, all the blessings you could ever want will come forward into your life. But if you don't obey, cursing. Not because he's going to curse you, but because doing your own way brings cursing. Haven't you learned that yet? Anybody tried living their own way for a while? How well did that go? And those of you still doing it, is it working for you? I know it's not working for you. So let's understand this. So in chapter 12 and verse 48, it says, look, this is for covenanted people. So it says, if a stranger who is proselyting, in other words, trying to figure out, I think I want to do this, I'm trying to learn, I'm like a student to become covenanted, then if he wants to do the Passover, he's got to make the decision and the commitment. If he's not ready, then he has to wait till the next year. Okay? Well, he can make the decision before the next year, but he can't do the Passover. He says, look, at the end of that, verse 48 says, but let no uncircumcised eat of it. There is one Torah for the native born and for that ger, for that stranger who sojourns among you. Now, I know it says sojourner and stranger, just like it said in 43 and 45, but these are not the same Hebrew words. See, this is the problem with translation from one language to another. You've got nechar, you've got toshav, and you've got ger. 3 different things. All right? As a matter of fact, the nechar could even be when Israel, traveled through other nations. They were the aliens in that other person's nation, but those people were not Israelites. So that would still be a nechar. The toshav is someone living amongst you, but he's not really part of the Israelite community. He hasn't covenanted. All right? And the ger is the one that says, you know what, I think this is for me. I think I want to do this. I want to commit to this. Teach me your ways. You know, we have Ruth saying things, your ways, my ways, your people, my people. She was saying, I want to do this. All right. Then we get, and actually in verse 48, when it says, and they must be circumcised and let them come near and perform it. See, again, look for how many times it talks about eating the meal and performing the Passover. Performing the Passover is the slaughtering of the lamb. Now, we do not slaughter lambs anymore. Not for the Christianized reason of, well, Yeshua was the last sacrifice, la, 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 la. That is nonsense, never happened that way. He had nothing to do with the temple system when he died. Temple system kept going after he died until the Romans came in and destroyed everything. And all the apostles, you see this in the book of Acts, kept going to the temple. They never got the message that the sacrifices were done away with. Everybody kept going. Even Paul, when he had to go stand before James and had to stand up for the idea of that he was teaching against circumcision, and he said, I wasn't doing that. So James said, fine, you go ahead and do the Nazirite vow, and you pay for a couple other people's expenses to do that, which is the animals and the sacrifices necessary. So in other words, the temple service was in play. All kept doing the sacrifices till 70 when the temple was destroyed. Yeshua's dying and being resurrected affected none of that. Oh, but he was the end-all, be-all of sacrifices. Nothing he did had anything to do with the temple service. Now, everything about the temple points to him, don't get me wrong. But everything, what he did, the temple never could do. So they're not the same thing. And by the way, he wasn't sacrificed in the temple. He wasn't sacrificed on the altar. He had nothing to do with those things. He didn't replace any of those things. He did a redemptive act so that death could pass over us. That's why he's called the Passover lamb. He's not literally the Passover lamb. They slaughtered him in the temple and then they put blood or whatever it is. Nobody ate him either. Okay? But he, like the Passover lamb, redemptively said, don't kill them, kill me. They all deserve to die. Let my death pay that price. Okay, so like when he says, no greater love does one have but to lay down his life for his brother, this would be like, you know me, you know my wife, you know my kids. If somebody threatened my life, their lives, I would say, take me, not them. Kill me, not them. That's what you do for people you care about. So Yeshua loves us all, and he said, I'll give my life. So it wasn't human sacrifice. It was an exchange redemptively saying, take me, not them. So let's not turn them into something, because people say, oh, well, God's against human sacrifice, and so Messiah was like this. No, that's not what happened. He said, take me, not them. And he freely gave of himself for that role. And so that's not human sacrifice. And so let's understand as we go through that. So, that being said, when you look at this Torah portion, there's so much more you're going to need to look at also to really understand Passover and what this had to do with how they came out of Egypt. And that's why I want you to listen to the Passover Q&A teaching, which is where it's called that because I try to answer like everything you want to ask about Passover but was afraid to ask, type of thing, I try to come up with all of the things about what leaven is, what you have to get out of your house, the difference between chametz and seor, and all those kind of stuff. But also in the part 2 to explain the Last Supper versus the timing of the Passover. And so this is really a problem. And when I say it's really a problem, it's because there are people out there, if you try to do this, you'll realize it doesn't work. You cannot have the Last Supper be a Passover and try to line that up with the Old Testament instructions. It's off by a day. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Because they're trying to line it up in a wrong way by insisting that the Last Supper was a Passover. It was not. I can say that very confidently. And that'll get a lot of guys out there mad who think I'm wrong, but that's fine. Because you're just regurgitating what you've been told for all these years by people who didn't know what they were talking about. Oh, you're so ego and pride, Rabbi, whatever. Okay? You can just start to be unemotional and logical about this and see what I'm saying is actually scripturally accurate. It lines everything up correctly. And all of the hints are there. I mean, just read John. I told you, John 18. It says very clearly that the high priest and all of those guys who should know when the Passover was hadn't eaten it yet. Now, if you understand the Holy Day structure, then you also understand why they had to take him down. Why did they have to take him down? Because it was a holy day the next day. Right? They slaughter the lamb in the afternoon, they eat the meal that night, and the next day, that night starts the holy day. It wasn't a Saturday. For all of the Christianity that thinks he died on Friday, rose on Sunday, and by the way, you can't count 3 days and 3 nights in those periods, so your math is really terrible. Okay? He said 3 days, 3 nights like Jonah was in the fish. Okay? That's 72 hours. That's not a part of a night, a part of a day, a part of whatever. Okay? He wasn't killed on Friday afternoon and then rose Sunday morning. That's like a day and a half. Okay, that's not enough time. But he was killed, and so if you understand, it was a Wednesday. Thursday was the holy day. They had to get him down because of the holy day so they could bury him. Friday, they weren't going to go and check out anything because Friday is preparation day. Saturday is the Sabbath. They weren't going to go anywhere to check anything out on Saturday. So they show up Sunday morning, as soon as they could actually show up, and the angel says, he left 5 seconds ago. Is that what he says? No, he says he's already gone. He's like, what are you looking for him? He's been gone. When do you think he left? Well, if he died at 3 in the afternoon, so guess what time he probably rose? 3 in the afternoon. That's 3 days, 3 nights. So, he died 3 in the afternoon Wednesday. Thursday, 3 o'clock. Friday, 3 o'clock. Saturday, 3 o'clock. The Lord of the Sabbath rose, guess what? On the Sabbath. And all of Christianity is worshiping on Sunday because they've been lied to by people like Constantine and whatever back in the day. For all you Christians out there, I'm not trying to get you mad, but all you Protestants, you're not protesting enough. Because your protest is supposed to be against the Catholic Church. Catholic Church gave you Sunday worship. So you're pretty pathetic Protestant. Because you're not protesting properly. I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm just saying you've been lied to and you haven't questioned enough, okay? You just swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. This is all you know, and that's it. The Catholic Church tells you that they did this. I'm not making this up. They're very proud of it, by the way. Okay, you don't have to dig very far. They're very proud to tell you they moved Saturday to Sunday. And they did it so that you don't Judaize. They wanted to separate the Gentiles from the Jews. So in case you didn't know that, in case you weren't aware of that, that's where you got Sunday from. The fourth commandment isn't Sunday, it's Saturday. You're like, well, how do you know what day? Because, all this. Look, did Yeshua keep the Sabbath correctly? Did he? Absolutely. Who did he keep it with? The Jews. Okay, so can anybody show me in the last 2,000 years the Jews moving the day that they worship? That's how we know Saturday's right. Okay? Because we have a lot of history and record over the last 2,000 years that if that had happened, we would have a record of it. You don't have to go back to the beginning of time. Yeshua, it says, kept the Sabbath as was his tradition with his Jewish brothers. He never corrects them for doing it wrong. He corrected other people for a lot of things. He never corrected them for doing the Sabbath wrong, like on the wrong day. And so we know he was doing it right. So look, I want to encourage all you Christians. You may want to think about what day you're doing. Maybe go bother your pastors and ask them why you're doing Sunday. The top 10, the big 10 commandments, number 4, is a problem for all of you. None of you are doing the Sabbath. You can't do the Sabbath any day you want. It's a created day from Genesis. It is special time created from the beginning and anointed with a blessing as being special, and that's the day he wants to meet with you. They don't want to meet with you on now you can meet with him any day, yes. People say, well, I can meet with him any day. Yes, you can, but only one of those days is actually the Sabbath. So yeah, you should meet with him every day of the week. Spend as much time with him as you can. Pray and meditate and get connected vertically, and you're supposed to be praying always, like always have that vertical awareness, always. Do all of that, absolutely. But you need to keep the Sabbath because he says so. And you need to not work. And don't tell me your Sunday's the Sabbath when you keep it for an hour and then you go and do whatever you want. How is that the Sabbath? I mean, you read all these Sabbath instructions. None of them is like, go keep a service for an hour and then do whatever you want. Keep it for a service for an hour and then go to Cracker Barrel. Okay? Or IHOP or Denny's or wherever you go to for your brunch. I mean, that's not a commandment to get a quick service and then go eat. It's giving him a whole day where your focus is all on him for the day. That's a difference, isn't it? Look, and don't get mad at me if this messes with things. You be honest with yourself and say, okay, I need to check this out, because if he's right, I need to make some changes. And it's not if I'm right. What does it actually say? Well, but we worship on Sunday because that's the day he rose. He didn't rise Sunday. I just fixed that for you. He didn't rise on Sunday, which doesn't change the fourth commandment. Doesn't say worship on the day that the Messiah rose. There has to be a command that Yahweh said, if it's ever going to change, which Yahweh says he doesn't change, that changes it, and Yahweh has to be the one changing it. Nobody else can change something Yahweh said. So nobody has authority to move Saturday to Sunday. Can we agree? And Yeshua said, I only do everything my Father said. I'm completely obedient. I'm perfect in my obedience. He would never have changed anything his Father said. And he never did. So let's understand all of that as we go through this, okay? And then in chapter 13 and verse 4 is that where it says the month of Aviv. It says, today you're going out in the month of Aviv. It's saying you're going out in spring, okay? It wasn't about searching for this state of the barley, okay? Nobody had to go looking for barley. Okay, and by the way, when they left Egypt, there wasn't any barley. Okay, the hail destroyed it and the locusts ate it all. And so, okay, they were leaving, there was nothing green. It all got chewed up. Just so we're clear on that. All right, if you have any comments or questions, I hope that was pretty good for you. You can go ahead and line up over here. If you're online, you can start typing in your questions. I appreciate your patience as I kind of blasted away a little bit. There's a lot of very important functional meat in this Torah portion. Sometimes there's a lot of stuff in there that was interesting for them, like the temple stuff, because we don't do the temple now. But this is very functional for us right now. Are you going to start, Paul, or are you just standing there to get the camera ready? Okay. Get the camera ready. You're holding the position. Yeah. That's fine. Okay. All right, who's first lined up here? All right. Constantine, you're going to ask the question? Okay, then stand on the side a little bit. Right there, that's good.
You remember it, or are you half asleep?
Half asleep.
Half asleep, so he doesn't remember his question.
Good thing I wrote this down for him.
Okay.
He came up with this last week. When Yahweh mocks the Mitzrayim with the plagues, is that a form of Yah talking directly to them? And did any Mitzrayites get their bubble pop because of this, like my family did? And if so, did they follow Moshe on Mitzrayim?
Okay, the answer is yes. Okay? That's where you get constantly, that's where you get that mixed multitude. There were some in Egypt that when they witnessed the power of the true Elohim, the true God, they were like, we're going to follow him. You guys are following him, we're going to go with you because you're following him. We want to know what you have. We want to have what you have. We want to be with your God. Okay, so absolutely. Good question. You're welcome. All right. Shira.
Rabbi Steve, thank you. I have not ever heard you preach so clearly and passionately about Yeshua's identity as the Paschal Lamb. And I just thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Tonight. That
You're welcome.
you just get better and better. I don't know what you're drinking, but
9.0 alkaline water.
all right, I'm going to try that.
Or something like that.
A couple things. This whole thing, I like this whole thing about looking at the ambassador of the king as actually the king. The ambassador, if you say, I'm going to kill you, Moses, Pharaoh's actually saying, I'm going to kill Yahweh. And in the light of that, it's interesting to me that in chapter 12:31, it says that Pharaoh called for Moshe and Aaron by night to tell them to leave Egypt. However, in the earlier chapter, 11, verse 8, Moshe, in a rage, says to Pharaoh, you just wait. Your servants are going to come and bow down to me and Aharon with the message to get out of Egypt. And so then you have that whole interchange, and Moshe says in the anointing, he says, you're right, you're never going to see my face again. So I'm going to assume, because of that in 12:31, when it says that Pharaoh called for Moshe and Aaron, they didn't see Pharaoh because Moshe had already spoken prophetically, you're never going to see my face again. So I'm thinking it was the servants. This was the fulfillment of when Moshe prophesied that the servants would come.
Sure.
And bow down. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. You know, don't mess with Yahweh's anointed appointed servants, because, you know, the same thing with Pharaoh. The Bible says that we know it's his servants that came, but the Bible actually said Pharaoh came. And in a lot of movies, you'll see, Pharaoh and Moshe have this last interchange. But
right.
Scripturally, I was just putting that together.
Sure.
So I think it kind of corroborates what you're talking about. The other thing I wanted to mention was I'm getting really excited, not only in the Level Up class, which is, there's so many nuggets, I'm just like rolling in gold. Woo-hoo, I'm rich.
And look, and for all of you in the class, go back when you get a chance and rewatch the class on video so that you can maybe catch something you maybe missed the first time when you were in the class because you're so busy writing a note or something, you know.
Well, then you told us to go try out Tony Robbins' free seminar this week. So my muscles are a little sore because Tony really gets you moving. But I got really excited trying to take some of the things that I'm learning from what you're teaching us about becoming who we really are and not denying anything about who we really are. So the plundering takes place during the daytime, it appears, before the 10th plague at midnight. So they were really busy that day. I mean, they probably had people going out and begging things from the Egyptians in the morning, and then they were doing all this in the afternoon to get ready for the meal, and it was a really busy day. But I'm just thinking, what happened to all this plunder? Was it not used to construct the tabernacle?
Okay, so first of all, I got to make sure I don't forget something you said earlier, just to kind of bring this out. Then I'll get to this part. You know, when Moses is being summoned by Pharaoh, one of the things we should understand, number one, Pharaoh knew where they were. Number two, he never killed them, never arrested them. You see this happen to other people. Jeremiah gets arrested and has problems. So you see the hand of Yah in all of this. I mean, to have him show up, get in Pharaoh's face as often as he did, and not get killed for it. Because remember, when we get to like Esther even, Esther's afraid she might get killed if the king doesn't extend his scepter for her showing up unannounced. So, I mean, it was a big deal to go before a pharaoh, a king, etc. And so just understand that that's part of what's going on here, is that's how much Abba's hand is on, Yahweh's hand's on all of this. Then, when you're asking the question, what was the second one?
Oh, okay. Was the plunder...
Oh, okay. So the plunder. Okay, one of the things I think is really cool is that if you already know the story, you know the intention of the plunder was for the tabernacle. Okay, because they needed to have that so they could build the different things that were all covered in gold and covered in different types of things that they needed to make the tabernacle. Now, a lot of it, though, got used to make a calf first. Okay? But it wasn't intended to be making a calf. It was intended to be making the tabernacle. So let that be a lesson, though, that when Abba blesses you with plunder, so to speak, he gives you all this abundance, it isn't necessarily meant for you. He gave them this so they'd have it to give back to him when he had need for it later to build the tabernacle. So in foresight, he provides in advance. And hopefully you should understand that about our Creator. He's going to always provide for you in advance for what he knows. He already knows what's coming. You don't, but he does. And so, yes, the plunder, I hadn't really thought about it very much until you started talking about it being something that they would need and when they would need it for. And then you actually asked the question, which had already formulated in my mind, was the answer was yes, it was for the use of the tabernacle.
Can I go a little further
Sure.
with that? All right. So here we are, and in many of your sermons, not just in the Level Up class, you've been encouraging us. You've been really talking to us about our gifts, our talents, our abilities, how to overcome self-hatred and the I can't, because you can, and that limited thinking.
Yep.
So shall we take back from the world and from our killed flesh the riches, the gifts, talents, skills, personality, color code, whatever, all these riches that he put into us, so that we're not killing the wrong thing. We kill our flesh, we kill, the firstborn. But he wants to use who we are to build up the living tabernacle, the body of Messiah.
Yes, absolutely. But see, the missing element, okay, is counsel, guidance, discipleship, mentorship. So yes, you know there's things you need to get rid of, but there's also things you probably shouldn't get rid of. You're just not using them necessarily the best way you could use them. Guidance, counsel is what the missing element is. And the body has suffered tremendously because most people do not show a whole lot of interest or even know it's available to go ahead and get counsel. I mean, look, there's a reason why this ministry probably does 80% of what we do is counseling. I mean, we literally spend all day, all the time in helping people understand how to make their choices and decisions and help guide them and give them the tools they need to make better decisions. We do not make decisions for anybody. We're not telling people to do. We're not a cult. But we can help you think through the process a lot more successfully, and that's really important. Really, just a quick note, I wanted to say this during the announcements, I forgot. If you've been doing Tony's Unshakable class, Tony Robbins, all week, just remember, no more. Tomorrow is the last class, but it's Sabbath. So if you didn't pay for the $47 thing, you're losing out on the last class. Do not try to excuse or spin and justify doing tomorrow's class. It was a free class. If that's what you got, the free class, then it's over. It ended today. Yes, there's one more class. I'll get to see that because I haven't seen any of them. I started watching the first one, but I paid so I could watch it next week whenever I have convenience. But do not do this on Shabbat. Don't try and spin it in any way. Oh, but it's so good and it's going to make me... No, don't you spin all that nonsense. Oh, by the way, somebody did ask this question today. I don't remember who asked it, but they contacted us. Well, I don't understand. You tell us sometimes to be careful, like listening to other teachers, but then you tell us to listen to some of these secular guys like Tony Robbins. Completely different subject matter. I'm recommending an expert in a subject matter that you don't just get out of this book without somebody taking things out and then putting it the way they do. By the way, just like I recommend you find experts in your depression, your anxiety, your anger, your boundaries, all your other issues. But when it comes to Scripture, multiple teachers is only going to cause you a lot of frustration and confusion. Go ahead and listen to anybody you want. I'm just saying is you will learn quickly that it's only going to make things challenging because they're not all going to say the same thing. Now you're forced to either choose which one you like better or whatever it is. You have all these other issues and problems. So don't confuse, well, you say this thing, but then you say this thing, I don't understand. Well, because they're different. One is something that can actually cause you confusion and a challenge. The other is to hopefully get you some information. And by the way, when you listen to a teacher who is actually your teacher, I'm hoping you're going to listen to everything they say. When I send you to listen to Tony or any of the other personal development people, I'm hoping you'll listen looking for that one or two things that's useful and ignore everything else. There's a difference between those two things. You understand? There's a huge difference between listening to everything, because that's a vertical relationship with an anointed, appointed person, an Ephesians 4 person, and there's a difference between that and listening to someone who may have something useful for you. You're reading a book on anxiety. Maybe you get one little thing out of that book that helps you. You throw the rest of it out. You ignore it. That's fine. You can't throw out anything I teach you if I'm your teacher. So you see the difference? Okay, and if you feel that way about 5 different teachers you're all listening to them, which one do you think? Because they're not going to agree. And then what do you throw out? What do you not listen to? What do you use as your filter? It gets really challenging, right? Mr. Chris.
Okay, and I think that Tony's videos on YouTube, they have been on YouTube for like a day or so, like after it, so you could perhaps watch it after sundown, I think.
Yeah, it may stay up for an extra day because he has left them up there, but he's left them up there knowing there's more days. Once this thing's over, I don't know that they'll actually be there, okay? Hey, look, hopefully you got something out of the 4 days, and if you paid your $47, you can watch it anytime. All right?
Okay, so in verse 5 of chapter 12, it says, "Let the lamb be a perfect one, a year-old male, take it from the sheep or from the goats." So I got kind of confused reading about the goats. There's no such thing as a Passover goat, right?
Right, okay, look, the metaphor in the picture is what they're giving you when they talk about things like the Passover lamb and Yeshua being equivalent like our Passover lamb. Now, they did use goats for those that couldn't afford sheep. Okay, goats are cheaper, they were common to have for people, and so it was really about taking that animal and putting the blood, because it was the blood that was what mattered, okay? But you treated the goat the same way you treated the lamb in terms of the way you didn't break the bones, and you didn't do these other things, okay?
Yeah, so I guess the idea with Matthew 25, where it's because the animals are similar enough that you can't tell the difference necessarily at first sight, maybe, I guess, is what I was thinking.
You're talking about the separation of the sheep and the goats?
Yeah. Because like on outward appearance, but he actually judges the inside, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, but thank you for that. And then I was thinking about on verse 9 of the same chapter, "Do not eat it raw, nor boiled at all with water, nor roasted but roasted in fire, its head with its legs and its inward parts." And so when we think about the eating of it, we might think of it as like a regular dinner where we just eat the meat, but they were eating everything. They were eating even all the organs. They were eating, and I think in a metaphorical way, you eat the heart. You eat like the kidneys. I've been getting into eating liver a bit, chicken liver and beef liver, and learning how healthy it is with all the nutrients. And so I thought when it talks about Yeshua saying, "Eat of my flesh," is talking about the whole of him, in like a kind of a Deuteronomy 6 way, like love with all, like eat all of him, not just what parts you want, I guess.
Right. Okay, well, look, it does not say exactly that. What it does say is that this is a whole burnt offering, okay? So the fact that you're cooking the entire animal. It doesn't say they ate every part of it, but certainly they may have eaten different things. It doesn't say that, though. But if you understand the temple later, the idea of a whole burnt offering, an olah offering, you would have burnt and cooked, roasted the whole animal. You would have put the whole animal on the altar and cooked the whole animal. So this is a whole burnt offering type. Okay, it's a type. I mean, I'm not saying it's what was going on in the temple. There was no temple here. And there was no temple when Yeshua died. But as far as him being in the temple, he was not in the temple when he died. There was a temple, but he wasn't in it. But they're trying to make a point of this being a type of offering we're going to learn about when we get to Leviticus, which is called a whole burnt offering. Okay? So what parts they ate or not, it doesn't really say. But I think the metaphor you have where it says Yeshua, it says eat of my flesh, and you mean eating of all of him, I think that analogy is pretty good.
Okay, so it was okay for them to leave it to the next morning if there wasn't something that they ate, like part of something.
No, whatever they didn't eat, they had to do what it says to do with it.
Yeah.
They had to, I mean, there's a process with anything that was left over, they were told what to do with it. Okay? So there was leftover. They didn't necessarily eat the entire animal. I mean, an animal could feed often more than the number of people that had for it, okay? All right. Anybody ever go ahead and have an animal slaughtered so you can have the meat? You can get a lot of meat out of some of these animals. Okay, and if you're only talking about one meal, okay, because you get a lot of meals out of one animal. So that's why they said you could share it with a family or another family if you have more than you need. All right, Steve?
Okay, in 10:1, it talked about Abba strengthening Pharaoh's heart and his servants. So with kind of what you taught in your level up class and hearing some of Tony's stuff, to me it seems like you can't strengthen what's already not there. So maybe it's an opportunity in hearing that, I can take a look and see what's in my heart that could be strengthened either as a positive or a negative, and take an inventory. And that's the thing I liked the most about your class was if you don't take an inventory, how can you know where you're even beginning? So I want to point that out there.
Awesome. Yep.
And then in 10:4, it talked about how when you refused, basically, I guess the comments, when you refuse to follow Abba's instructions, there's a curse that befalls you. And we're always surprised that when we don't follow his instructions and stuff starts happening, it's like a surprise to us. So maybe we should think about listening to what we're supposed to do.
Amen. Absolutely. All right, Ashley, and then we got the live stream. So you guys get ready on the stream.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi. Constantly made me think of a question off of his, the Mitzrayims and the Jews. If the Mitzrayims had
Israelites.
felt...
Israelites.
Sorry, I'm tired. Yes, Israelites. Yes, sir. If the Mitzrayims and the Israelites both went out of Mitzrayim because they wanted to follow Yahweh, does that mean that Mitzrayites and Israelites are a mindset depending on whether you want to follow Yahweh or not?
I guess as a metaphor, you could say that. There's an Egyptian, Mitzrayite, Babylonian, Roman, whatever, that opposite the system, the world system mindset versus the covenanted mindset.
Okay, so really...
And some of them decided to come out of the one and enter into the other. That's why you have the mixed multitude.
Okay, I was just thinking because what I came out of, I guess it really doesn't matter what you're born at. Thank you.
And yes, and I've said that a million times, okay? Never, ever get sort of cultishly into the idea that your genealogy matters. Not in the big picture, it doesn't. It does matter from the point of view that, Paul tries to explain that if you happen to be born in a covenanted tribe, if you were born in Paul's day as a Benjamite or a Jew, that there's a higher expectation that you should have already had some understanding because you were raised in that. However, it doesn't avail anything if you don't do anything with it, and Paul makes the point. Your circumcision, in other words, when Paul uses the word circumcision, he's talking about whether you were born in the community or not. Like if you're born a Jew or if you're born a Gentile. He's not actually talking about whether or not you're circumcised. So he says those are the circumcision, those who are born into the system, so to speak. He says if they behave like someone uncircumcised, then the circumcision means nothing. And so it's what you do that matters, okay? And so circumcision itself is a sign of something. If the thing that it's a sign of isn't happening, then it's a useless sign. It's a sign of covenant. But of course, if your behavior doesn't show that that's actually the case, then the sign was a useless sign. All right, live stream.
Okay, from Janet Hoffman, chapter 10, verses 20 and 27. Can the trials/situations that keep repeating in our lives a way that Yahweh strengthens our heart like he did with Pharaoh?
I don't think that probably happens that way very often. It's certainly within the realm of possibility. If he's trying to get your attention about something, let me think of a scenario. Let's say you have something that you've been struggling with, and then you kind of sort of fix it a little bit, but you really don't, and then you struggle with it some more, and then he may kind of give you a punishment trial, something, put you through something to get your attention, knowing full well it's really not going to get your attention, it wasn't big enough yet. So then he might harden your heart, so to speak, so that you keep doing the dumb thing you were doing, so you get an even bigger blow up in your face, so that he really can get your attention. I guess that's theoretically possible. I don't think it probably happens that much. This was a very different thing with a sovereign over a nation that had authority over the Israelites, and he had these very incredible, amazing signs and wonders and judgments that he needed to pour forth. That was part of his plan. And so he was going to keep making sure that Pharaoh didn't panic and give up before he was done. All right, so that's different, than strengthening you. But I suppose, there could be a scenario where that would make some sense. So it's not outside the realm of possibility. Okay, next.
Janet Hoffman, chapter 13, verses 3, 9, 14, and 16. With a strong hand, Yahweh brought you out of Mitzrayim. Is this to help us develop the fear/awe we need to have towards Yahweh?
Absolutely. But let's be clear that when it says with a strong hand, Yahweh brought you out, let's understand the strong hand. Was the strong hand bringing them out, actually bringing them out? No. The strong hand is what happened to Egypt. With a strong hand, him smacking Egypt real hard, he brought you out. You still had to pack your bags, gird yourself up, get your staff in hand, and you had to leave. So it wasn't with his strong hand that he picked them up and took them out in that way, but it was with a strong hand. In other words, what's a strong hand mean? It's authority, right? The strength of the hand of authority. With his authority, he brought them out. Because I don't want you going into that sort of Christianized idea that somehow he did things for them. He did things to Egypt. They got to witness it and then be inspired to now follow him. There was a strong hand. A very strong hand of authority was brought to bear so that all could witness it and then make choices based on what they saw. All right, next.
Christian Dennis, Rabbi, is Aviv a month or a season? Because according to Google Calendar, Pesach falls in the month of Nisan. 13:4 refers to Aviv as a new moon /month.
Okay. All right, Christian. I know Christian. All right, Christian, listen. The deal is this. Nisan and Aviv are the exact same thing. When they were in captivity in Babylon, they took some of the Babylonian names for things. So you have a bunch of Babylonian, this is one of those foolishness that we have, names for some of the months, okay, as you go through the Jewish calendar. Now that we call it a Jewish calendar, as the Jews put that together through the Sanhedrin for us to have. And so what would be called Aviv ended up being called Nisan. And so it's the same, nothing's different there except the name being a Babylonian name versus the scriptural name for the month. That's why we also have a month in the calendar called Tammuz. Well, why would that be in our Jewish calendar, so to speak? Well, because they put it together in Babylon. And so these things are after effects of some of that journey through Babylon. Okay? So, all the Jewish calendars will call it Nisan. Some might call it Aviv, but they call it Nisan. All right? So I prefer not to use Nisan. Nisan is out of paganism. And so we'll call it Aviv. Okay? But better just to call it the first month. Okay? The first month falls in the Aviv or the spring. So spring is a season, and the first month would be called the first month. That's why we end up calling the fourth month, because we didn't want to call it Tammuz. So we called it the fourth month. Okay, we called it Harivi'i. Okay, instead of calling it Tammuz. All right, so hopefully that answered that question. But that's, again, when you don't know where these words come from, it's easy to make these, or be confused by some of these things. So a lot of the calendars will call it Nisan. Ours will call it Aviv. All right, next.
From Anna Kaufman, Exodus 10:9, did Moses lie to Pharaoh? They didn't just leave to observe a feast, but rather they left Egypt for good.
No. He never said he was coming back. He said we're going out to have a meeting with our Creator. Because that's what the feast means. Wasn't that? Because you don't see them going out and having a feast, like they start slaughtering and having a party and a meal and all that. No, he says, we're going to go out there and meet with our Creator. And eventually they actually do that at Sinai. Because a lot of other things happened, so this wasn't just 3 days' journey. But that's what we're talking about here. Okay, so no, he didn't lie to him. He never said he was coming back. Okay? He just said, we're going to go out and we have to go do this thing. And we're taking everybody. Because after all, we generally would want to take everybody if we're coming back. And the cattle and everything else. Wouldn't that seem like a lot to do if you knew you were coming back? That's a lot of work just to come back anyway. So, I mean, it's pretty clear, I think, that they weren't planning to come back. All right. And that's what Pharaoh understood, and that's why he wasn't going to let them go. He didn't trust that they would come back. Because they weren't coming back. All right, next.
Okay, from Yad Yad, Rosh Kodesh was the first commandment given upon leaving Egypt. Exodus 12:2. I think they were asking, is that the first commandment?
Well, that was given before they left. I mean, this is happening before they even get the lamb and selected everything else. This is the instructions before leaving. And so what it was doing was, if you're going to come now and be my people, and all of you have this experience to some degree, I'm going to need to reset your calendar. Almost all of you needed to learn that Sunday wasn't Saturday. Almost all of you needed to know that there's a calendar that starts in the spring and that it has the months and the holy days connected to it. So he had to set their calendar. By the way, I've said this in a lot of the teachings I've done, the appointed times teaching and others. I believe that when the greater Exodus takes place and Yeshua shows up, one of the first things he's going to do is fix our calendar. Because I know we don't have it right or perfect. I'm sure there's things wrong with it. And I'm not saying that means, oh, well, you just haven't looked for the right one. And somebody online now is thinking, well, I got the right one. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Okay? But Yeshua is going to set it straight so we all have the right calendar. Because that's what he did here. That's why I believe he's going to do it, because they're types and shadows of things to come. So if that's how they left, being told this is the way the calendar works, well, that's how it's going to happen again for a greater Exodus. That would be my guess. That's my expectation. Anyway, I think that's what's going to happen. All right, next.
From Christian Dennis, says, Rabbi, Genesis 3:22 specifically says women, yet chapter 11, verse 2 says the man and woman will collect the gold and silver. Is this two separate events, or are the women representing the men, connecting you as a representative of Yahweh?
Okay, I'm not sure what Genesis 3:22 has to do with anything. That's not the right verse.
I think it's Exodus 3:22, Rabbi.
Yeah, because, I mean, that doesn't make sense there. Yeah, Exodus 3:22 says, but every woman shall ask from her neighbor and from the stranger in the house objects, etc. Okay, and then we get to 11:2. And it says, speak now in the hearing, and let every man ask from his neighbor, and every woman from her neighbor. So I'm not really sure. No, it's the same event, just with more detail. Okay? There's nothing different here. Now, bear in mind, sometimes when it mentions the women, it doesn't mention the men, it's because the men are the one being taught. So there would already have been an expectation the men would have been doing a lot of these things anyway, because the conversation is not happening with the women. I know it's hard for us in 2023, ladies, but you were not on the same, vertical, interaction level back in those days that you might be today. None of this, don't get mad at me, none of this book was written to you. It was written to the men and then to you, because that's the societies that this book was written under. And the ladies were to get it from their husbands. Isn't that what Paul said, by the way? Hey, ladies, be quiet, go home and let your husband explain to you whatever it is you didn't understand. Now, by the way, he wasn't saying, ladies, you can't say anything. What was probably happening, by the way, when Paul said that, let this be a way to undermine some of the total nonsense that comes out of the churches. Paul didn't say, ladies, you can't speak in the congregation. See, you've not been in a Jewish congregation, an Orthodox Jewish congregation, to understand what was going on. They have separate seating for the men and the women. The ladies would have been in the back, the men would have been in the front, so that the ladies probably couldn't hear what the person in the front was saying so clearly, especially this exciting new stuff coming from guys like Shaul, from Paul. And they wanted to know, so you hear a lot of buzz about some of the things that are being said, and the lady's like, what did he say? Did he just say that? And they were disturbing the congregation. And so Paul said, tell them to be quiet. If they miss something, let their husbands explain it when they get home. That's different than saying, ladies, you can't speak. It was simply saying, if you understood the dynamic, what Paul was dealing with, the ladies in their wanting to hear and understand, especially when it was like something like, what? Did he just say what? And they're all getting all, excited about it, as ladies tend to do more than the men sometimes. That could be a little loud in a place without microphones and speakers and all that kind of stuff. And so Paul was simply saying, if that's happening, then ladies, just wait till you get home, ask your husband what you missed, and he'll help you out there. Okay, don't create the disturbance in the congregation because you couldn't hear something. Now, it doesn't say that exactly, but if you understand the dynamic of the time, that's what was going on. Okay? All right. So that being said, the vertical structure was heavily in place, solidly in place. Men were given an instruction with the understanding that they would give that instruction to their wives and their children. Instruction wasn't given to wives and children directly. It was given through the vertical. Okay? And so the men were given that. Okay, next question.
Okay, last one, Rabbi. Vaskin, Exodus 10:26. Is this similar to Genesis 22:7-8? As Abraham answered Isaac and said, Yahweh will provide himself the lamb for the offering.
No, I mean, Moses is telling Pharaoh he's going to provide these things. So I wouldn't necessarily connect those things. Okay? Abraham didn't know how it was going to come. He knew that it was going to be provided somehow. Moses knows exactly how it's going to be provided. He tells Pharaoh, you're going to give us the things we need. Pharaoh said to Moshe, go serve Yahweh, only leave your flocks and your herds, etc. And Moses says, no, you yourself are to provide us with the slaughterings and the burnt offerings to prepare for Yahweh. And our livestock are to go with us also. He said, no, we're taking our livestock and you're going to provide us with extra stuff to do the offerings with. He says, no, not only are we not leaving it behind, we're going to take all of our stuff and you're going to give us more. All right? Anything else? Is that it? All right, excellent study tonight, everybody. All right, fantastic. So, let's go ahead and have somebody go ahead and close us in prayer. I missed who opened us. Who opened us in prayer today? Andrew did. That's right, he had a pre-written stuff. It was good. All right, let's go ahead and have Ben come up and close us in prayer. Yeah. Your good friend Grayson got all excited for you. All right, if you'll all rise, we'll be closed in prayer by Mr. Ben White.
Abba Father, thank you for allowing us to come here together to study and worship you and learn under your leadership that you've given to us. May you help us discern and take what we've learned tonight and apply it to our lives as we go throughout the week and just try to become somebody that you'd want to spend forever with. And I ask and thank you for everything that you've done and are going to do for us, and just ask all this in your Son, Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
Amen. Amen. If you want to be on camera, come on this side of the room. Come on this side of the room, and we're going to wave goodbye to everybody out there. So come on this side.
Did you ask your question?
He did ask his question. All right, so, got everybody? Almost? Good. All right, so we want to let everybody out there know how much we appreciate them being a part of the congregation at large. And so this is our opportunity to kind of look you guys in the eyes and smile at you and let you know how much we appreciate you. We're going to wish you a Shabbat Shalom and a Laila Tov, which is a good night. And we're going to say, I love you, because we love you very much. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.